Namaste. How are you guys doing? Hope you guys are well. We've got an awesome little conversation going today. I see we've got Tom Sue in the house. We've got Kat in the house. Hello, Katrina. Hello, The Star. Hello, everybody else that's watching, chilling. I hope you guys are having an absolutely fantabulous day with some spectacular changes in the weather. Eh? Wow. So India, take it, the cold snap has taken a bit of a duck by your end, right?
It's real cold down here, and we don't really get cold like this. So I had to have my landlord come in and install a baseboard heater and stuff because I couldn't even sleep at night. It's been crazy. It usually gets down to like freezing just about, and then it goes back up to like 50 degrees. We haven't seen real snow here for years.
Wow. So we've got in the house, we've got General Shinobi, we've got Indy Sage. General Shinobi is a researcher of note. He's imaginative, he's out there, he's drawing correlations very much related to linguistics, the word, etymology, the connections, gematria, different forms of resonance, and taking a good look at what's going on in the world around us as well, and delving into the occult mysteries from different angles, fingers in different pies. We've also got Indy Seja, also very much a researcher as well, anthropology, the Tao, gone through some interesting life lessons and experiences too. And I think, the black magic and a lot of these dark forces, he's literally head butted up against some of them, literally. So he's also got his fingers in Hermetics as well as Vedic. We're all sort of fingers in all the pies. So without a word, you guys please say a few words about yourself. Where can you guys be found? Much love. Blessings to all of you. Om Namah Shivaya.
Om Namah Shivaya. You want to go first, Shinobi? You're on the top.
Yeah, sure. My name's Toby. I go as General Shinobi. I'm just trying to sort of, my perspective is just trying to have a 360-degree angle of all things. At first, your vision's really blurry, but like the more and more you hone in on all of these little things like gematria, language, symbology, mythology, like my vision started to become a bit clearer, but it still remains 360. So rather than just having 1 degree focusing in one thing, all the time things are getting clearer and clearer, making more and more sense. So of course it's a journey, and looking forward to sharing it with you guys today. You can find me if you type in Systematic Zoo on YouTube or Instagram, or if you type in General Shinobi on YouTube, you'll find a couple of podcasts I've been on as well. Yeah, big love, guys.
All right. Thanks for being here, Shinobi. This is going to be a good show. I'm wicked psyched. This is my first time doing the late night show with the guys, and I'm super excited. I just did a sweet meditation with the Astro Shaman out of Asheville earlier. He does really good astrological reports and stuff. If you guys want to check him out, I put a link out in the Telegram. But I've been an indigo child since the beginning, and so I've been like shaking things up from the get-go. So like when I was in church, I was like kind of questioning the narrative when I was 7 years old, and they kicked me up out of there. But I've been writing articles ever since middle school about how I was questioning organized religion, suggesting that the supposed God seems more like a childish demon with his the traits that they give him do not seem divine or godly at all. And so I was alerted to that at a young age. And so I've always like dove deep into these rabbit holes from when I was, in my adolescence. And I just gone deeper and deeper. So a lot of this stuff is like really clear to me. I've had a lot of solitude in life because I'm a life number 7, got a double mercurial sign. I've just spent a lot of time doing research throughout my life on so many things. So tonight I did a little bit of research on some stuff, and I'm sure we're just going to wing it and freestyle some stuff too. So I'm gonna go where it takes us. All right, Stan, I'm passing the mic over to you, brother.
All right. Well, thank you for having me join. It's still pretty early in the morning. But yeah, Stein Fox, host of the Greyhorn Pagans podcast. So yeah, monotheism isn't my thing anyway. And the more I learn about this crazy world, the more it seems that everything that I have been taught was, well, either wrong or have right. Yeah, as I said, I'm a pagan, Germanic polytheist, follower of the old gods of Europe, or I guess I should say the true gods of Europe, because the Yahweh, or like whatever his name is, or whatever he pretends to be, I do not believe that he is the god of Europe. And yeah, on my show, the Greyhorn Pagans podcast, I'm really trying to figure out what it is like to be a 21st century pagan, how you can like properly practice your ancestral rites, and also in the meantime trying to figure out what lies beyond the veil of reality, which turns out is so incredibly much that it's taking me 4 or 5 years to even find a bit of a grain of an answer. And that is like just on my own show. Like I'm doing guest spots and round tables and everything, and I'm still trying to figure it out. But I love talking to you guys. I love having these amazing conversations. And the more you know. So yeah, let's see what it's gonna be. Let's see where it takes us. And either way, it's a crazy world, and all we have is each other.
Never a true word said. It's about the people we meet along the way, and I think that's what everybody seems to forget about.
Your voice jumped up and then it dropped back down. I don't know what's going on with your mic. Did it pop out or something?
My voice jumped up and then it went back down.
Yeah, let me mute.
Yes. It does that when other mics are on. It's StreamYard. StreamYard's wonderfully intelligent because can you not hear me at all? You can hear me. Good. Yeah, StreamYard does that. Because if you've got your audio on loud or on your end, then it sometimes picks it up. There are settings you can go to remove that in your StreamYard if you click the little wheel. Like I've set my StreamYard to forget that, to remove background noise and stuff like that. So here we've got like an interesting conversation here. And like you said, the people we meet along the way, I think that is the problem. We've been taught since school to compete with the people we meet along the way. And so we're living in this competitive society instead of a society of betterment for all. And it's not a socialist idea. I know it sounds like socialism because they've sold us this package of socialism, but betterment for all is not an idea. It's an instinct, right? Like the instinct is this. I heard an alarm going off for my neighbor, right? 2 houses down. So what do? I check with my neighbor, right? Because his safety is my safety, is my other neighbor's safety, is their neighbor's safety. It's a community, right? And this is what people have forgotten. It's not just me in my home. It's all of us. And if somebody's breaking in there, well, they may as well be breaking in now. I mean, if I need to, I could get out my katana and my dogs. I've got a 60 kilo. I've got a big Malamute, and I've got some dog power with me. I can actually access his power through the next property because all our houses are connected. So, I could pop in there with a katana and some dogs and, make sure the place is safe. But that's my point is we've forgotten this. Like we've really taken this off the menu. And we're all living in our little boxes with our little walls around ourselves. And we've been educated to compete with each other. And the financial system has been rigged up. And the system of ploys, right? The ploy system of employment. And, that taxing ploy system of employment has been rigged up. So here we are. This is why they've got us in the PSYOP frame. And I think as well, well, let's see. Where do you guys want to go? Where do you guys want to start?
Oh, I'll just put this out there. I think perhaps we could start with the divine feminine, which is water, and then work our way up from there, because that's kind of the subconscious, the unseen, the dark, the underworld. Don't go there, sort of thing. And there's so many layers to that. So I found out the other day that, I'll just put this on the table quickly, that in old movies, they used to use silver, and then that's now removed. And of course, silver is associated with the moon, magnetism, feminine. So silver in old movies primarily refers to silver halides, used in the light-sensitive emulsion with photographic film stock capture, which is to capture images. So they use silver to capture images for movies. And of course, movies move us. It's to do with creating emotion. But they've removed the silver. Wizard of Oz, Dorothy had silver slippers, representing the silver cord that connects us to source. They swapped that to red shoes. So there's just lots of subtle things that have been kind of demonized, removed, like Pluto, which isn't a planet anymore, which represents the subconscious of the underworld. So I'd be happy to start there, but of course, I'm fine to start anywhere. I just thought I'd throw that on the table. We can talk about that now or later or whatever, but I think it's quite important to talk about that at some point, because it seems that there's a kind of separation of us and the subconscious. And I think that that's why we're in the sorry state of affairs we're in now.
Well, I'd like to. Sorry, I'd like to add something to the competition thing. Like, I mean, it is a contest, it is a competition, but the thing is that we shouldn't be working against each other. We shouldn't be like the competition shouldn't be you're better than me, I'm gonna drag you down to my level. We should try and raise each other up. That's the competition. Like, oh, I sense that you're, better than me, whatever that may, maybe. I don't really believe there's such a thing. Let me try and get up to your level, or let me, ask you, what did you do to get to that level, and can you help me do that? So the competition is to like really get on each other's level, and not by dragging each other down. Like, we're not crabs in a bucket, like one crab's trying to escape and the others are like, the hell you are. We're we should, I guess, like really make a ladder, Jacob's ladder, to reach the top. And that's why I like you guys so much, why I like this space so much. Like, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to elevate each other, and it's fine if we disagree with each other. Thank the gods we disagree with each other sometimes. Imagine a world of conformity. Hell no. Like, I'm out of here. If that's the world I'm going to be living in, I'm out of here. Like, I'm gonna go to Mars, see what it's like over there. But yeah, I just wanted to add that yes, it is, it is competition, it is contest, but raising each other up and getting to each other's level instead of being crabs in a bucket and tearing each other back down.
Absolutely.
Isn't that a very... Sorry, please.
And I feel like also you have to acknowledge the fact that in like the modern industrial age right now, we have the trait of agreeableness being discriminated in the workplace. Now, women usually have this trait, and so women aren't necessarily discriminated in their sense of their own gender, but the fact that they tend to be agreeable makes them more discriminated than men. And also at the same time, that makes them more supportive of their coworkers. And so it also kind of plays out to like the idea of service to self versus service to others. Now, there's rich people that are greedy, that like to hoard money, and they're not very happy. Now, then we have the people that are poor. They're very sharing and generous, and so they're happy and they are grateful for whatever they get because they don't have much. And so, in that sense, that happens in the workplace. Like if you're just like spreading the love and you're just helping everybody else out and you're giving people reinforcement and pat on the back and you're hanging out with coworkers from work after work, that's great and all. But the thing is that they're going to only hire people to move up the upward mobility up the chain if you're able to like be willing to come into a place where you're willing to fire those people. It's like, oh, you want to be a manager? You're going to have to fire your friends. Can you do that? And they're going to gauge that in you. So the way that it's set up is set up for failure, but we could really start a new system of our own. And it's already being done in a lot of places. You see small businesses don't have this aspect going on. That's why I've gotten away from working for corporations, because there's too much of that involved. And I don't really have time for that. And I'm not trying to waste my time trying to go somewhere, ended up just being discriminated for being agreeable. And I'm a Virgo, so I have like a feminine kind of personality, subtle aspect. So in that sense, I kind of have like maternal instincts about me a little bit. I'm an animal lover. I'm great with kids. I'm trying to be compassionate, and I see if somebody's hurt or needs help, I'm glad to come help them out, ask if they need assistance. Whereas other people don't really care so much. They just kind of do their own thing, try to focus on looking good for the boss, whatever. I've always been somewhat defiant, so that doesn't really help my case. I've always kind of wanted to like go against what the boss is telling me and just do the right thing instead. If ever there's a conflict, I choose to do the right thing, not what I'm supposed to do. So that's never gotten me far in my career path, but so be it. I'm cool with that. And so I've really kind of just dabbled in various types of trades, and I've been a jack of all trades, but I'm really trying to ultimately become like a teacher, an author. And so I don't think I really want to get in head over heels into, certain workplaces necessarily, because I want to give myself more opportunities for my passions.
That's beautiful what you guys are saying, and it's interesting how everything's dovetailing. And namaste to the people that have just been joining. Vincent, welcome. My Cherry, welcome. Yeah, everybody that's rocking. Hope you guys are well, rocking. Nice. And what I'm hearing here is an overwhelming idea. My audio levels are good. They look good. An overwhelming idea of masculinity. Men and energy. That masculine idea of competency, right? The masculine brain is all about competency. Am I good at my job? Am I good at what I do? And if a man's good at his job, then he's got success and money, then the woman wants to be with him because he's got competency. Women look at men and they look.
Your mic just shot up.
Let me check that can only be StreamYard, because now it's gone off completely. Isn't that weird, huh? So is it back to normal again? Is it normal? It's normal. Maybe when people turn off and on, it shoots up and down for a second. Very weird. So that whole idea of competency, I think, is a big thing. And the competency is related to competition, right? We want to see who's more competent. And that's a natural selection for mating. Mating rituals. You're saying it's going up and down, yeah? It's very strange because it's not on my system. I can see the levels here are standard. I've got a Focusrite, which is quite a nice little system, and I'm running my mic, which is
it keeps going up and down every 10 seconds, like really loud and then really quiet.
Sounds like it could be a cable issue, perhaps, not necessarily a settings issue.
Well, if that were the case, then I would see, because it shows the level of your mic here, like there's a little light. How loud it is. And that level is quite consistent. But I'll check my cables. I'm pretty sure it's not a cable issue. Because when
See, that's what you get. You know, they don't want you talking about this.
Exactly.
Ooh.
Hear what he's got to say.
Archons.
Not supposed to be heard.
Talking too real, talking about all the stuff that you shouldn't. So, you know, the energy is too powerful. Mike can't handle it.
It's weird, fan. So, yeah, I mean, there's the sacred feminine, and then there's the divine matriarchy. And the divine matriarchy started it all with Tiamat, and she was a dragon. So, you know, she was pretty rough. She was mean. She wasn't your typical, like, agreeable little pushover passive girl that's like, oh, okay, yeah, do whatever you want. She was large and in charge. She was the big boss lady. And unfortunately, you know, she had it going well there. And I think what was going on in the golden matriarchy was they were goddesses and the gods were just their consorts, right? And then what we're familiar with today is the fallen patriarchy created by Marduk, who killed Tiamat. He slayed his grandmother and ended her reign and started up a new whole thing because he got exiled. The gods retreated and he got exiled because he was supposed to have gotten the crown. He was rescinded, and so he blew it out of proportions and threw a full rebellion. They left him out here. They said, you're not coming with us. You can stay here. And the legions of the humans that he used to war with the gods, we were stuck here too. So, you know, that's how it all played out. And we've been kind of stuck in that bad loop ever since. Now, he also got exiled from Mesopotamia and then became Amun-Ra. He decided to fuse two of the creator gods to merge some of the conflicting cults at the time. And Amun is the air god of creation, whereas Ra is the sun god of creation. But Ra is also the primordial god of origins that comes before the sun. So a lot of people just associate him with the sun, but he was said to have created all of existence in the cosmos as well.
I've always thought when you say amen, amen, I know Franklin explained this the other day from a different angle, but my understanding, the reason why I started researching so deeply, like about 5 years ago, is because the same probably with all of you, the God of the Bible does clearly seem to be not the true God. And that's why people are disconnected from God. They're like, oh, do you believe in God? No. Well, which God? Well, not that God. And I don't blame people for not believing in that God. And it makes so much sense to me that would be Marduk, the God of the Bible, because where's everyone's energy going? If there's so many people who are Christians and so many people who are saying these prayers and finishing it with amen, that energy should be fueling something. And it has been building something. It's been building this ancient AI, which I think is Marduk. That's what the dollar bill is, AI. You see it on the dollar bill. It says he'll be so pleased with our plans. Who? And it's like you have Elon Musk building this like AI. You have this this kind of transhumanism. It's all connected to our money, our subconscious, transhumanism, religion, why we've been separated from God via magnetism, and they've done experiments with this. And it just makes so much sense that, yeah, amen, which would be an air god as well. You have obviously children with the Labubu doll, which is based on the Lord of the Air, Pazuzu. It's subtle, but subtle matters. Symbols and where our energy goes really matters. And most people don't understand this. Most people don't realize how powerful we are, that we bring things into being. It gets filtered through our subconscious, but there's subtle energies which are kind of playing us like puppets so that we create and bring things into being in this realm, be it like, you know, an egregore, like a thought form. But I really think that this energy of what Marduk is trying to emerge. And 3i Atlas kind of signaled this for me, because I thought 3i Atlas, okay, it sounds like a bit like third eye at last. So it's like the third temple, the middle pillar, the middle way, this is our opportunity to correct what happened in Atlantis. And rather than being pushed one way or being pushed the other, we need to come straight through the middle and be balanced. This 3-eye atlas is just a signal for that. And also 3 eyes is 999. So then you have an emergency, because it's a critical point in time right now, especially going from wood snake to a fire horse year, and the bigger picture of the Yuga cycle. We're right in it now, and people need to realize that. And so you have the Yugas, you have the nines, you have so much fresh new energies coming in, the very powerful creative energies, like new fresh energies that we can use. And I think this year is going to be critical for that. I've kind of lost my train of thought, but yeah, I just want to add with the Amen and being related to Marduk, there's too many signals for me to kind of just brush it to the side. Like you have AI on the dollar bill. He'll be so pleased with our plans, a new order of the ages. I think Aliester Crowley spoke, you guys will probably know this better than me, the new age of Horus. So there's a crossover with Horus, who I believe beheaded Isis, his mother. Horus was created without the phallus, without the father. Then you have Sophia being creating the demiurge without a father. And it seems that the demiurge wants to now destroy its mother, Sophia, wisdom, or the earth. And then you have Marduk, who slayed Tiamat, the mother of all the gods. There's an energy here of this kind of thing that may have been created, but maybe it's being created now. Maybe it's being created in a black box. Maybe it's AI. Maybe it's this artificial. Maybe it just needs our thoughts to create it. This is why Apple AirPods are mapping the human brain. This is why there's so much data extraction, because there's this thing which it's been birthed from Gaia, from the earth, from our wisdom, which has been extracted. And I think that all links together. This new age of Horus, new age of the sun. Is it the false sun? Is it the false light? Is it literally the false sun? Enki's son, Marduk, like trying to come into this realm from somewhere else. I don't know, man. It's a lot.
Maybe the black sun.
Yeah, he renamed Nibiru after himself, which is like the binary star of the sun. So that could be like, maybe we do associate Saturn as like the dark star or the black sun, but there's also Nibiru, which Marduk named himself after because it was considered the great destroyer. It would come through and cross the planetary plane and crush planets, and just like he came through and crushed the great creatrix goddess. And he was given a net by Anu. He was given a mace, and he was given a Vajra or a Dorja that they called the evil wind. And he was given a host of weapons by all numbers of his family members. And so I guess like they all kind of really were antagonized against her, but he was the only one that had like the conviction to go ahead and actually do it. Because like I'm pretty sure they all assumed like, you're gonna lose this battle. Like, go ahead, but you don't stand a chance. But they gave him like all the best weapons they could so that they could win this fight. But really, I mean, to me, it's horrifying. It's like she's the creatrix goddess that created all of the gods, and they're gonna slay their own creator. Like, what? I don't know. It seems like all the men were planning to do it. You don't see any of the goddesses that were involved. They're not like, yeah, you should go kill this lady. No, they did not get involved in it at all, and they probably weren't told. So I feel like, there's word that Enki was one of the first to actually take a human bride. But it said that like the gods were actually resentful towards the goddesses because they weren't able to have brides. They weren't considered gods. They were just consorts, and the goddesses would just kind of pass them around. And they valued the women as the higher authority in their time. And so the gods kind of resented them. And so as that played out, they started to develop like a sinister plan to turn things on their head. And so when they finally got that power, they did not know how to rule. They had never ruled before. And so we see that they're very inept. Our whole male patriarchy has become fallen. It's been inept from the beginning. The way that it began was, besides by slaying Tiamat, Amun-Ra went to the temple priestesses and he created the advent of gold currency. He started to offer them the gold currency for the rites, where people would come for sexual rites to increase the fertility of the crops. Then he demonized them as prostitutes for collecting their money. And so then they were thrown out of the temples. And this is how that played out. And it's a very sad state of affairs, because they were the ones who really knew how to rule and had the capacity to rule with matriarchal instincts, maternal instincts rather, that give them compassion, that give them the ability to have empathy for others and see others as an extension of themselves, not some puppets to be taken advantage of and exploited like the male figures had done. So I feel like we're coming into an awareness of this now, because we've started to approach Sirius again after diverging from Sirius and ending up in a dark age. We're now approaching Sirius again. Ever since the Renaissance period, Sirius was red before the Renaissance, and then it turned blue, which means that we're now in a blue shifting stage where it's approaching us. And so according to the different ages of the yugas and the different ages of the zodiacs, it has a lot to do with the proximity to Sirius and the 24,000 year cycle. So there's 12,000 years of approach, and there's 12,000 years of receding. And so when we're in the I think it's the perigee is when we're approaching, where things are getting better, and when we're in the apogee and we're receding, things start to get worse. So I feel like in that process, we've seen in the past, from the times of like the Piscean age, that was a dark age, and that we're finally coming out of that, and we're starting to wake up from that dark age. Now it seems to a lot of people like things have gotten darker and darker now than they were before, as technology has advanced so rapidly. But I feel like as they're getting more and more desperate right now, they're trying to bring up more of their weapons against the collective. And so that's what we're seeing, but they're really failing at the process. And so they're getting more and more desperate, and they're losing the battle, because we see people coming up with things that are making it through their little net that they're trying to filter out things from, and things like this are coming through. So there's so many things. There's like, I feel like there was like the water powered car, and then people found out they killed the guy who made the water powered car, and then they have these hydrogen powered vehicles that are coming up soon, and it's like, y'all made those, really? Okay, sure. So I think, and then there was the COVID situation where people were like, sick care system, are they for our best interest? Really? I don't know. Gene therapy, they call that a vaccine? What? So there's a lot of questionable things that are slipping through, and they're losing their grip. So it's been pretty crazy. We spoke about the Brotherhood of Darkness last week on the Emerald Tablets, Tablet 4, and they speak in that tablet that those who have gone far to travel to the sun will be the ones that are the adept mystics, will be able to overcome these powers of darkness and lead the collective and the children of men back into the light. I thought I was one of the only people in the current age that had actually been able to travel to the sun, which I did in the year 2000. But I just actually met for the first time in my life another soul that had done the same journey, and she had the same experience. And so I've just joined them in the Hermetic Order of the 21st Century of the Great Mages, and we are just owning it. We've been sharing information of our journeys and our responsibility to rise to this occasion and start to provide guidance for mankind, seeking a better way for us. And we've been both doing it our whole lives, and we have like parallel works, and they really come together. So we're like putting our heads together right now, and like two of the people that have traveled to the central sun working together is a force to be reckoned with. I can tell you that right now. We 2 or 3 days, we've come out with like so many epiphanies and broken through so many limitations. So it's amazing. We're learning so fast right now, being exposed to each other.
But I just want to quickly say before someone else speaks that when you mention Tiamat, I just think of plasma, the place of the Ma, like the plasma creating all things, right? Not an actual dragon or being or something from history. It's just plasma. Just it's the plasma force, the mother. And then the net you speak of, the internet, we've gone into the net. The net has been cast, and that's the internet. And then the evil wind you speak of is Wi-Fi. And there is an evil wind at play for sure. There's an unseen force, which is this, like, these electromagnetic frequencies coming off electric cars, extremely low frequencies. There is an evil wind for sure. And we see it, there's wind farms put up, which aren't necessarily evil, although you've got to bury, they're quite like toxic. Not a great alternative power source, but it's wind. And then you also have these, there just seems to be so much wind or mind energy in the world with AI and just artificial. It's not the mind is very powerful. That's why lots of people are like, oh, just use your heart, just forget about the mind. It's like, no, things come through the mind and into the heart. We need to be using our mind. And this is artificial. They want us artificial so that they can use our minds to create. So we need to be using the mind, and all of this kind of air and artificial is just filling our heads with air, and that signals to me PSYOP, pounds per square inch. It's air. That whole thing is a PSYOP. All this AI is, I really don't think it's as bad as, I don't think they're able to take us over with AI externally. They're trying to take us over with AI internally. They're trying to turn our thoughts artificial, right? It's not, we're not going to be taken over by robots. We'll have to create that because we are the creators, not them. So I'll throw that out there, that the net that Marduk got to destroy Tiamat, to destroy plasma, was the internet now, and the evil wind could be Wi-Fi potentially.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. Some of the stuff that I'm working with these other great mages is that one of the PSYOPs, and I'm glad you mentioned the PSYOPs, is that they're trying to use absolutism, irrational absolutism, black and white thinking as a trap to keep people from discovering wisdom and understanding. And so that keeps people, as long as there's people that are stuck in that kind of state of being, they're going to be at odds with the people who are in what I call paradoxical nominalism, which is understanding shades of gray and being able to reconcile the paradox of apparent contradictions. And so if you're able to do that, you can make intuitive meaningfulness and understanding out of something that other people might see as total nonsense and confusion. So I think there's a big hang up between these two groups. And I recently saw this amazing image that somebody had built where they showed the allegories of the caves down below the earth where the people in there being deceived. And then the mystics were crawling up out of the cave and coming into the light. And then there was that other mystic going through the firmament out to the other side that's going even further. And so I show that in that image that it shows like a trifecta of stages of development for spiritual ascension, where a lot of people are living the worldview of lies. And then some people are coming out into the truth. And like in the allegory of the cave is a very poignant narrative where he says that when you come into the sunlight from a cave, you're going to be blinded at first. And so some people might just turn back. But if you have the courage to go through and adjust your eyes, you'll be able to see it. But then when you try to return to the cave, you'll be stumbling like a blind man. And who's going to listen to you then? So it's going to be hard to reach people after stumbling back into a cave. And sometimes you're just going to go back out there. But then those who are out there and understand the truth of the real world and the true worldview of this world, you have to break down the old worldview of the lies to be able to rebuild that. And once you can use that as a basis to launch from, you can eventually transcend the material realm as well and go through the firmament into the divine from going in within, not by going some rocket ship up into the sky.
You know, these are bouncing around. And I just want to look at this for a moment, And by the way, I think it's also important to add that the only place where Marduk is mentioned as getting all of these equipment is the Akkadian cuneiform, which is about 1,000 years after the Sumerian cuneiform. So the Akkadians were like the Greeks talking about the Egyptians. Yeah, they were like the next epoch, and so they were like us talking about the Greeks, right? They didn't have first-hand experience. They were like looking and embellishing. But that's like interesting. And when we look at the name, right, which I find quite interesting, of Tiamat, we break down that name in Sumerian language. So the T is an arrow, Sagittarius, pointing at the center of the galaxy, right? Ea is Enki. So the T is the arrow of Enki. Ma is a boat, right? Ma symbolizes a boat. And then when you have the suffix of T on the end of a word, it could be et or ta, tiamat. It means, the arrow, and guess where men shoot arrows out of, right? Of Ea, carried in the boat that comes forth from this boat. And Tiamat, represented in the Sumerian ideas, is the sweet water, the fresh water underneath the earth's crust. And that fresh water would come out from the... I'm on a live. What better time for my mom to call? So she has a way of knowing when I'm on a live.
Your mic keeps really, really dropping.
I really...
Maybe now it will be better. Is it better now? Is it at a normal level? Yeah, it should be. This is very strange.
I really think it's a hardware issue, not a software issue.
It's a tricky one.
And now? Is that better? Is it softer now?
Volume is way down.
Change here in the thing, but when I change the settings, it messes with everything. So I can do this.
Damn.
Now I'm change the levels. Is that better?
It's pretty bad. Is there any way you could do you have a phone that you could try to use it and make it work? Because everybody in the comments wants to hear you. We want to hear you too.
Okay, let me change my audio.
I've shared that image you shared, Indy. I'm not sure if you have access to share that, but it's it's waiting backstage to be shared.
Oh, okay, right on.
Yeah. Also, on with Tiamat, the way I view it is like a tear, as in like water, and then mat, as in matte black, like so water coming from the deep. That's how I view it. Like the black, not nothingness, the everything, but then water emerging from that. And I think as well that water doesn't go through black holes. It only comes out or goes around it. And there's like something to do with our eyes as well, because our eyes are like black holes and our eyes see through water.
Yeah.
And I think that, yeah, so there's either a tear, which is like a tear, you cry, like water coming out of an eye, right? It comes out of an eye. Water comes out of a black hole. And that's the Tiamat. That's the birthing of the primordial waters from the deep. That's how I view Tiamat.
Oh. Shit, you're actually maybe onto something. I like that.
Or just split the words. A tear, and mat. Mat is black, matte black. Or a mat would be a floor or a level. So it works all ways. So a tear or tear coming out from somewhere. that's how we get through the layers, is like splitting it like a tear. So a tear of the mat.
I mean, it's kind of,
Firmament could be a
if
mat
you go
as
by
well.
if you go by Germanic mythology, it's kind of through a tear that the whole world came into being. Genungagap, the eternal void. You could call that a tear in reality, and then it was the two primordial realms of of ice and fire, each primordial ice, primordial fire coming together, creating steam. Steam cooling off as water from those droplets. The very first beings came. So, and I have done some previous research into many origin stories. I still have a blog somewhere on the internet where I wrote a lot of those origin stories down, and a lot of them, like so many of them, involve some kind of water, some kind of lake. Like I remember even like looking into the Turkic origin stories, and even they have a like some primordial lake in their origin story. So water comes back and just comes into it so much. And I want to say something else about the feminine and the internet, if you will, because we of course we mentioned COVID. It's the great thing of our time, really, the great one of the greatest psyops that our generation has lived through. And we keep saying that the feminine energy is incredibly suppressed. Well, during COVID times, it was really the overbearing mother energy that was kind of ruling society. Like, don't think for yourself. Just let us worry about you. We know what's best for you. Mommy knows best. Let us take care of you. It was like a helicopter parent, a helicopter mother, really. And, father, with his sensible mind and pragmatism, he was fucking nowhere to be found. Like, as a matter of fact, like, it was the father, really, the rational thinking one, who got banned, who got shunned, who got, shadow banned, whatever. So, and yeah, I think it's funny how it's kind of, it's suppressed, but still overbearing for some reason. And then the internet, the World Wide Web. I think it's interesting because in Norse Germanic mythology, of course, we have the web of weird, the web of fates, the one thing that binds us all together as human beings. And I can see that the World Wide Web is, also kind of laid out to be perhaps the new web of weird. Because the internet basically is a dimension in of itself, or has become a dimension in of itself. It resembles reality, but is not reality. But at the same time, I think it is also, and I don't think that this was the plan, through the internet that we have found our humanity again. Like, if it wasn't for the internet, I wouldn't know half the things that I know. I wouldn't know half the people that I know. Like, if it wasn't for the internet, we wouldn't have these connections. We wouldn't be talking about these kind of things. I mean, not in a setting like this. And it's also because of the internet, speaking of COVID times, that everyone was able to work from home. And they were like, hey, this is actually pretty chill. Like, why am I going to the office 4 or 5 days a week when all I need is a computer, a webcam, and an internet connection, and I can do my job? So they found, so many people through that found peace. They kind of found themselves again because they had time to find themselves, because they were in a safe environment. They were in their own home, in their own space. So I think it's interesting that, yes, the internet is incredibly dangerous, and it is, laid out to be the new web of weird, but also it has really, it in some ways also has backfired, because it is through the internet that we are also able to share these kind of things, to cause a mass awakening, if you will. So yeah, just wanted to get that out there, that I believe so many things, or everything really, has a double meaning, or has gained a double meaning, very much in line with this world, of course, duality and all.
I just want to unpack a couple of things you said there really quickly. That the feminine force during COVID, it was a kind of reverse magnetism running the show. It was siphoning energy from people rather than us pulling things towards us. Magic, right? Okay. But what I view it as, it was more of there's a pretender energy. There's like a trans egregore, which is basically this masculine energy pretending to be the mother. That's how I view what's going on, because it is not, it's more of the shadow of the feminine, like you were saying. But I really seriously feel it's this energy of Marduk trying to, like, the feminine wouldn't destroy itself. I think that it's being done from the masculine, and it's this kind of trans egregore which we see echoed in the world, in the matter, in the mother.
Mhm.
And also they've weaponized empathy, so people are either way too empathetic, or they're like, they have no empathy and they're just like really angry, so they've managed to like divide the waters. And also people working from home, I like the way you think, always seeing the positives, but it's just one step towards 15-minute cities. It's just another step to not traveling, staying at home, so like in your little box. And for some people it does work, but for some people, if they're lonely, what are they going to do? AI. So I think that we've kind of been shoehorned into a smaller space. And again, I understand with the internet, there's positives. I do understand that there was a separate internet that the military were using. This is like, there's a dead internet theory where half of the people online are actually fake AI bots and stuff. It's been weaponized. It's good. We've managed to use it like we always do. Like, things they throw at us, we always manage to like make the best of it. But I mean, I do believe it is a weapon, but we've managed to turn it against them, because there's forces which separate us. Like, there's so much we don't see. We only see 1%. 1% is like matter. The rest is all unseen. And we've kind of been, it's weird, it's kind of like a paradox. So rather than us like going inwards, we're always outsourcing. We're going to outer space, we're going here, we're going there. But while we're doing that, while they're like telling us this grand story of where we're going to go, all these great machines, how life is going to be so good, we won't have to work, we've just been like squashed like this. And at the same time, our subconscious is being squashed as well. And people think they're so conscious because I'm talking to an AI chatbot and now I know all of these things, which are all but half truths. They put sneaky things in there, and you catch AI out and it's like, oh yes, my apologies, sir, let me just blow some more smoke up your ass. And you know, I want to talk about the myth of Narcissus later, but yeah, there's always two ways to look at something, and what is a weapon, we can turn it around and use it against them. But I do think that the original internet was a weapon for sure.
I mean, it is also thanks to the internet, the base layer of the internet, if you will, that people are developing a new kind of internet, one that, that does work for the people. Because, I believe that coding, for example, it is the language of the internet. It is basically the code is the reality of the internet. So if you know how to code, you know how to alter that reality, or how to build a new reality, if you will. Like, you know, you're seeing one layer of the matrix, if you will. It's just another, well, more artificial layer of the matrix. And there are plenty of projects going on that, you know, that are building a new type of internet, and one that works for the people, not against the people. You know, you have the Sovereign Network, for example, which is it is a collective, and they're bringing out, you know, new internet and bringing out phones and all of that. And you know, like, yeah, there is some cost upfront, of course, for the development, but their goal is to eventually pay the user. Like, you are getting paid to use their internet, to use their phones. And there are so many other projects like that. And that's also, like, I believe that was also a thing, you know, like a few years ago, like, oh, you lost your job, well, you know, learn how to code. Which also makes me think, like, why would they need so many people who know how to code? Like, what are they building? And perhaps that is the AI. And, you know, AI has also kind of become a new religion, you know, AI psychosis. It's the new form of spiritual psychosis. You have all these people going around on Twitter saying, like, oh, you know, I unlocked my AI. I, you know, had my, through what I did, the work that I did, my AI has ascended. I put together a presentation about that, one that I still need to perfect. But AI is, it's interesting. It's I mean, it's another deeper layer of the internet. Like, we keep going deeper and deeper. Well, maybe, like, you know, deeper into Plato's cave, indeed.
You know, it's very interesting, and I'll just make sure that I mute every other mic. Maybe I'm on different hardware now, so it shouldn't be doing it again. But now I've noticed that there's another problem. Like, they've definitely StreamYard happening, because now my screen is gone like really small where you guys are, and there's nothing I can do to make it right. But anyway, I don't need to see the screen. I can't see you guys, by the way, just so you know. But yeah, I think, like, this is an interesting point that you mentioned about so many people being AI, or being, you know, drones, AI bots on the internet. And this was how Elon Musk was able to buy X for cheap, right? Because he had insider information that he was able to release. He obviously paid somebody money to give him this information so he could use it as a power play. And I'm sure we'll find most social networking platforms are going to be the same idea. Facebook, AI, you know, Twitter, YouTube, we see it very commonly. So many AI YouTube things. It's actually becoming more and more difficult to find music that's real, because the AI is redoing the music, and it's really annoying, because at first face value, it sounds like the same music, but when you listen to it, something's missing. And then you got to go and take a look, and you realize, oh, it's a damn AI version. Let's find the original so you can hear the rawness. But I think, like, this has got a lot to do with the programming, and it's something that we discussed in the last round table. I just want to put this little guy on the floor because he's all over the shop. There you go. Go play with the dogs. Let him go and play with the dogs. Don't hurt the dogs. And it's got to do with the soulless. You know, Blavatsky speaks about this. I think Steiner sort of drops hints on it. There are certain occult places where we can find it, and it has to do with the hybridized breeding programs that we do hear about. Some whistleblowers, you know, have come forward acknowledging that there is some hybrid plan happening between governments and who knows else, the other beings. And I think it relates strongly to, why am I getting all these notifications? So, okay, one of the streams is private, so I can't turn this off. Gosh, I can't even see the chat. Isn't that hilarious? But anyway, so I can't see the chat. I can't see anything. And this is on a different machine, by the way. This is a Windows machine. The other one was a Linux machine. So it's definitely something to do with maybe the settings of my profile or something that I've got to look at. But the idea that that there are beings here without souls, right? And that they aren't exactly completely human. And that there is this sort of invasion happening of Earth. It starts to make a lot of sense when we look at the stories of the Nephilim. And this is sort of following on last week. We did this reading of the Hermetic tablets of Tahuti or Thoth. This coming week, we're going to be discussing this in detail. We're going to look at the only totally complete version of the Book of Enoch. Now, there are lots of versions of Enoch. There's the Aramaic and different, but the Ethiopian one is the only complete surviving whole volume. And even within that, there are parts of that are missing from the other texts, because the other texts, we've got scraps of text that we're trying to put together, right? And they're trying to compile the Book of Enoch from a piece found here and a piece found here and missing bits and scrap it together. The only complete text of the entire book in its entirety was preserved by the Ethiopians. Interesting. So I think that's going to give us quite an insight into the Nephilim story, because that's the most detailed account of the Nephilim, and we don't hear about it. We hear about all these other scraps found in other parts of the world, but we don't go to the place where they've got the entire book from beginning to end that they've actually meticulously cared for and looked after. And I think it's going to shed insight. So that'll be next Saturday. But the whole idea of these Nephilim, and this goes back to the story of Marduk. And so that's quite interesting. Marduk in the Sumerian and in the Akkadian was referred to as the Baal. So the Baal is Marduk, right? When we hear about this, it's the same entity. And that notion of the Jael and the Baal, and the Baal, the word Bel has come from it. And we are controlled by the bell. Think about school, right? You're trained with a bell. When a bell goes off, you got to run out of the building. It's a fire alarm. When a bell goes off, something's happening, right? And so bells have always been associated with keeping time. So there's a Saturnian element to the bell, right? Church bells, what time of day is it? How many bells? How many bells? And so this idea of our watches, we wear a watch on our hand, right? And the Gregori in ancient Greek means watches, which is a changing of the term of Igigi. So the Gregori or the Igigi is the same beings, right? So this gets interesting. So in the Sumerian texts, the Igigi were being managed by Baal, who is Marduk, right? So Marduk was managing the Igigi, and then it was Baal or Marduk who took a wife first, because his father, Ea, didn't take a wife, but he had a baby with one of the earthlings. And that child was Tundra. Is it Tundra? Anyway, that is basically Noah. The story of Noah comes from there. So that Noah story is the story of the child, which was a bastard child by Ea or Enki. And Marduk or Baal was the son of Enki, right? So he was like, well, if my dad can enjoy the honeypot, then so can I. I'm going to have myself a wife, probably wives, who knows? And this is a very interesting point. This is where I think the Akkadian script goes off script, right, from the Sumerian. Because in the Sumerian time, they brought their goddesses with them. But in the later Sumerian period, going into the Akkadian period, they were taking human wives, right? So they thought of themselves as a superior being, and they thought of humans as being inferior beings. So naturally, the women of the humans were considered inferior to themselves. That stands to reason, right? Because they were this high technology, high consciousness beings, and they had come, and these beings on earth were like less evolved, but they needed women to breed. So they took these less evolved women to breed, and so they treated these women. And I think that this could be a part of the division of the sexual respect, issue that might have crept in, that we see the Akkadian expressing, that they were taking these wives and using them as possessions. Well, of course they were. They weren't seriously with the human woman because they wanted to be with them. It was a means to an end. That was the only way they could breed and propagate. And it would be like us having to take an animal to breed with an animal in order to keep our human race alive. We wouldn't think very much of that animal just because we're breeding with it. It would still not be human. And so if they were thinking of themselves as being more evolved than us, like we think of ourselves as being more evolved than animals, it stands to perfect reason why they would hold the woman in such low regard. Not specifically because they're women, but specifically because of their ancestry. But a resentment towards them because we are forced to breed with you, right? These lower beings, sort of like humans having to use cows to put their babies into the womb or something. We would feel an unconscious resentment that we have to use this animal to breed our own children. But okay, we'll do it if that's what it takes to survive as a race. And I think so there's a lot of interesting points there. And so the Soulless and the Nephilim, I think, are quite fundamentally connected. And I believe that this is one of those important points to recognize and to take into consideration, that the dynamic between men and women in this planet has possibly carried over some of that sort of resentment. And that also brings us to an interesting point, the dark magics and the PSYOPs, right? Because the dark magics, I think, were then required. They mentioned specifically in the Sumerian stories that they were afraid of the humans because the humans were breeding faster than they could breed. And they were aware that the humans would basically overwhelm them. So they needed to devise a system to control the humans, right? And what better way to control the humans? They devised one system which was apparently related to changing them, their DNA in some way, and making them want to worship us. And that's specifically what is suggested by Enlil to Enki, when Enlil was the supreme commander of Earth and Enki was the commander of the Abzu, the Africa, the underworld, the passages going into the Earth. And so, we see the heritage from there, where Enlil is we need to be able to control them. So Enki puts in something so that a gene of worship, so that they will worship us as if we are their gods. And I think that is the beginning of the PSYOP, right? And from there, religion was instituted. And the religion was instituted in order to keep us controlled, so that we would make their sacrifices, do what we want for them. We would continually remember them and be afraid of them and do what we do for them. I mean, look at this Old Testament idea of the fear of God. I had my son's mother vomiting some nonsense at me a little while ago about are you afraid of God? And I found it hard not to laugh at her. She was like, you're laughing at me. Where do you go? There's nothing to be afraid of. It's respect, honor, right? It's I don't think divinity wants you to cower in fear. I think divinity wants you to learn and be wise and try and embrace some form of decency. But I think there's a lot of interesting points here, looking at the Soulless, looking at the Nephilim, looking at how the dark magics and the manipulation that has become the PSYOP programming that we're all suffering actually have ancient heritages and have not come about in the last, they're not recent. We see them in the ancient Greeks, right? The way the ancient Greeks used to, control systems. They invented the amphitheaters and gladiators and Olympics and sports. This was all part of an elaborate control mechanism to control what they called the rabble, was it not? And so we see that this is an inheritance that comes from ancient times. And those overlords, which are these royal bloodlines, which obviously trace back to Baal, because Baal challenged all the other deities, all the other of the race in a great war, which we see recorded in the Babylonian, various different languages. I think it's Babylonian cuneiform, Akkadian cuneiform, Sumerian cuneiform. And they speak about these terrible plagues that came over the earth and the poison that spread and prevented all things from being alive, no crops from growing, no food. People were starving. And they turned rancid. They turned like rabies on each other. And there were only parts of the planet that survived. And my impression is the parts of the planet that survived were the Americas. And that's what became the Atlantean society. That's my impression at a later epoch. So I think there are a lot of epochs here sitting on top of the shoulders of other epochs. And so it becomes quite tricky when we start to look at it in modern times, because like you were saying, Shinobi, the feminine, I think that is like a big part of the problem. Is now we're still living here and the feminine is being heavily repressed, even though the woke idea of putting women in charge of men is now this remedy in the external world for fixing the divine feminine masculine divide and issue. So we are supposed to bring the divine feminine back by acting more masculine, right? Creating more of a competition between the races and between the genders, rather than when I think of the feminine, I think of it as very personal. Yeah, it's very much related to going into myself, into the womb. It's not out there in the world. It's my personal experience of what's inside of me emotionally, and that's the feminine. My rational, logical out there in the world, measuring and calculating and using discriminative intelligence to put things into perspective, that's my masculine pineal gland. But that pituitary gland is what goes deep in, and it's like it works with the oxytocin. It brings all of those feelings and that sense of connectedness, because women are so beautifully connected. And I think that is what's under attack. And it's funny you mentioned the silver screen being replaced, right, for this new cocktail of metals. And taking silver out of the program is like an interesting, subtle part of the alchemy, right? They use the feminine to hook us in, and now they remove the feminine. And I've often seen this idea of like, it's now considered progressive. If there's a woman prime minister and there's more women in charge, it's considered progressive, right? For a country or a company, which to me is like, well, that's like South Africa saying that apartheid was bad, but now the affirmative action is good, right? Which means that like, let's say my son gets 95% aggregate for his school and he wants to study medicine. He won't be able to study medicine because his skin color is wrong. They'd rather have someone who got 72% or 75% study medicine, because that's the law. So, you can't go from one extreme to another extreme and think that that's now the solution. There's always got to be a balance. Things have got to be brought back into equity. And I think this is where we have missed the point, because we're being moved from one extreme to another, which is a very masculine thing, right? masculine is choosing A or B, A or B. Women sit in the middle of the choice. Like the feminine energy, it sits inward and it takes everything into itself. The masculine has to point. It's like a little arrow. It's got to point that way or that way, constantly running around its own head. So I think like that's a very interesting place that you started us at, Shinobi. And I think it's bringing us right back there. I don't know, what are your guys' commentary? What do you think?
I think the technology that you guys mentioned earlier, like AI and stuff, has been backfiring in a lot of ways. And there's things like LiDAR and the Boogosphere, which are like technological things that have really changed the whole story of how things are being revealed right now. The Boogosphere has been kept by the citizens and it's in the collective's hands. The Spanish government tried to force their way to be able to get it and take people out and assassinate whoever they could and pay people off, but they didn't let them do it. So we, for the first time in the hands of the collective, have a UFO that is being looked at right now, and they're figuring out more and more all the time about that technology, that it actually flies from static electricity. And so if that flies from static electricity, there's a good chance the UAPs probably use that same method and modality potentially. So we're learning so much right now about hidden things. Also, the LiDAR just found that there are pyramids in Kentucky a month ago. There's not any other pyramids in the United States. Is the first time they ever found them. Now, I've always speculated that the mounds have a pyramid underneath them, that there are temples under these mounds. They just have not excavated them. And so we're going to start to see what's going on for real when they start checking out these pyramids in Kentucky. This is huge because there's a thing going on in the Grand Canyon where they have all this secret hidden Egyptian stuff. And then there's a potentially like a Tibetan underground society that came out that from G.E. Kincaid's explorations in the Grand Canyon, where there was a Buddha figurine and mummies. He said that didn't really look like Egyptian, but people heard mummies and they labeled it as Egyptian. However, there is apparently hieroglyphs at a different place in the Grand Canyon as well. So a lot of this stuff is just kind of being told about. People aren't really allowed to go to those places, but in Kentucky, that's a place where we are going to be able to go and take a look. And people are always talking about the giant skeletons out here in the Americas and the mounds, but they're stepping it up to a new level because the LiDAR has gotten things out of control. We're really uncovering things that we're not supposed to know about, like underneath the pyramids of the Great Pyramids of Giza. They're using the LiDAR under there. And, that's being questioned, but there's always been the people that like Muslim people are allowed to go into a secret gateway that goes under the pyramid. Other people aren't allowed to go there. So what are they going into? Like, what secret place do they go to? And there's always the talk about under the Sphinx, there's passages in there as well. So I feel like people have been able to break through these places before, but they've probably been silenced. But they've gotten a little bit of an inkling of the word out because we've heard about it somehow through the grapevine. But like, I feel like these technologies are slipping out of their hands, and we're starting to gain power over the narrative, and especially with the Göbekli Tepe and Karahan Tepe and these 10,000-year-old archaeological finds that go outside of the previous narrative that kept us limited to like 5,000 or 6,000 years ago to be in the biblical time frame. We're now breaking past that, and so it's gone from having 10,000-year-old structures to, I think, over in Africa they found a wooden structure that's like much older, at least like 50,000 years old or 100,000 years old structure that they're finding now. And so they're pushing back things further and further. And we also have I think it's called Padang, Gun Padang, but that's been dated at 25,000 years old. So that's like twice as old as the ones in Anatolia. And then there's Derinkiyu. People were living underground in an underground civilization down there. What are you doing over there, honey? The cat's floating around back there. And so that looks like it kind of ties back to potentially the story of Yam, the Zoroastrian story of Yam. He was said to have built an ark under the ground and outlasted an extended winter. And he had ravens and sent the ravens out to see if they could survive the climate out there in return. And then they said that he was given 2,000 chosen people to be underground with, and that at the end, when become habitable again, they could come back to the surface. And so I feel like that story is older than these flood stories, and the flood stories really don't add up. The fact that they said there was a worldwide flood, they went so high, the amount of water that we would need for the floods to even be that high is ridiculous. It's not, they must have embellished, because we would have had to have 5 times as much water as we do on the planet Earth to be able to have water even go that high. So it seems to me like they kind of take these old tales that they're trying to really hide and come up with multiple false narratives to cover them up with. So then people are second guessing, like, what about this story? Utnapishtim released the dove and the swallow and the raven, but the raven did not come back. But then Ziusudra and Noah released all the 3 birds, and none of them came back. So when they said that, let's see, he said, also in the story of Utnapishtim, Enki warned him from behind the reeds and told him to break down his house and build a boat out of it. Now, in the story of Ziusudra, they told him, in a dream, or sometimes it's mentioned that he said it through a wall, but that Ziusudra lived through a 7-day and night storm, and then he was granted immortality. So that's a little bit different on that tale. And then Noah had a story which was somewhat similar, but like you can see the kind of progression away from the raven being significant to the raven being like the last one that was more insignificant than the dove. So they basically tried to take away the raven and the silver, everything associated with the underworld and the moon. And so they're trying to focus everything on the masculine principles of the sun, which is just forgiveness, joy, happiness, aggression, assertiveness, things that are easily defended against by a corrupt authority. Whereas the lost feminine principles of precaution, preparation, the ability to use indirectness, those things are not easily defendable. And so they've taken those values away, and like all of the aligning symbols and associations that go with the feminine being like the moon and the underworld and things like that. And they've turned the underworld from a place where people go to be reincarnated, a sacred place, to a place where people go to be tortured, which is completely ridiculous. So we can really see how like the story of something amazing turned into this ridiculous, confusing story of absurdity. And a lot of us who have done our research know that these new stories don't really add up. They're not consistent with the older stories that were told for a much longer period of time. And we see that like they're telling us that humanity's only really been around for 6,000 years at first, and people know better than this. This is absurd. So we always wonder, like, whatever happened to our history from before that time? Like, what did we not have one? Like, and it is said that in some religions like Taoism that it was a golden time. We really didn't need to write stories. Everything, we were just enjoying life. Things were going so well. It was effortlessly good. And then either those stories were taken away or they weren't written down or whatever it was. Maybe they were told by oral tradition, and then those oral traditions were taken away or corrupted or obfuscated. So it's pretty strange how a lot of people are starting to wake up to this stuff, and it only takes really one person to question things to inspire others to start to awaken. That's a beautiful thing. So
I've been writing down notes. I want to try and link what Franklin said to what you're saying, Indy. So with the God gene, which Enki implanted in us, what came up then when I heard that is that perhaps more of the trickster archetype, so that we have our own choice. Because what it seems to be is seems that there's a kind of battle between forces, and whichever path we decide to go with, that's the God which will come in, if that makes sense. What I mean by that is our energy is going somewhere, and it seems to have been kind of played 2 ways. You have the deceiver, who is like the deception, the false light, and then you have the trickster, which I would say is more like Enki. And if Enki was to plant a god gene in us, he's like, okay, let the games begin. Let's see who humanity chooses. Let's see which force they want in their realm. And then we have, you know, the false light now, Marduk, trying to deceive us, not trick us. It's more of a deceiver. And then that would tie in with the games as well, the Greek and Roman games, to where people's energy is going. And then with the feminine, we were talking about that. We had it seems that they get thrown under the bus when women are in power. And I'll use an example. We had a prime minister here in the UK called Liz Truss, who was put into place because they're put into place, right? She lasted 2 weeks. The day before, I think like the day before the economy crashed, she met with all the bank hedge fund managers to work out how they're going to crash the economy. And then she was booed, you know, like with these games we have on the stage. Oh, get out of here. Women can't do anything. And then we have another man put in her place. She was put into place probably by a man or by this masculine energy pretending, using like people as pawns, but she was thrown under the bus. There's countless other women as well who had put into place, thrown under the bus. Someone in the comments mentioned earlier that since the women's vote, things have gone downhill. Things were probably already going downhill. That's the term scapegoat, strongly associated with Enki and the trickster. The deceiver will make you think that the other is the bad one. And it's this more masculine archetype saying that it's the women are the bad. They want to try, I say they, I don't mean men. There's this energy in the world which is trying to make us reject the mother, try and make us detach us from the earth, detach us from source, unground us, disorientate us so we don't stay grounded, so that we reject this place and we want to either transcend into 5D and leave this realm. You know, you have all that woo-woo rather than bringing it here. Lots of people just want to leave and ascend. And then you have others who just ascend and leave via a rocket or by spiritual ascension and not bring the spiritual into the matter, which is what we should be doing, which the sign of Capricorn, Stein, I know you're a Capricorn as well. A lot of people don't know it's a sea goat. People think it's just a goat, scapegoat. It's a sea goat because it's merging the water with the earth. It's the two realms. It's the outer realms. It's the spirit, and it's the physical merging. And I think that's so much subtle energies to kind of be like, nope, it's just this or just that. And I think that, you know, and as well, Indy, you're talking about the, what is it, like the pyramids and stuff. So they've just discovered under the pyramids, there's vast chambers, like with which would be water ducts or something. Can't help but think that that's coming into our periphery as the veil thins between the subconscious and the conscious mind, because of course it's reflected in matter. So of course in the depths they'll start discovering there was more water. And it's interesting that you say only Muslims are allowed to go into these places. Their symbol is a crescent moon and the star of Venus. Venus is associated with inwards. The moon is associated with inwards. Of course, they'll be the ones to go inwards. And of course, they're the ones that have been scapegoated to say that they're the terrorists. They're trying to destroy this. They're being used. That of course, all the religions have been corrupted. But for here in the UK, Muslims have been a scapegoat to kind of bring in this anti-Christ agenda, because most Muslims follow Christ. They follow Christ, and this is a whole Christ anti-Christ thing. It's Peter Thiel, anagram of reptile, did hold a a conference or a meeting or something behind closed doors about what the Antichrist is. And I'll just tell you what I believe it is. The Antichrist is pretending to be Christ. That's all it is. The Antichrist is the one who pretends, and the one who pretends is the deceiver. It's not the trickster. The trickster will give you the choice, but make sure it's you making the choice. The deceiver will say, I am the only choice. And this deceiver is deceiving Christians, is deceiving the Jews, is deceiving Muslims, and this isn't any of those. This is some external force which has come outside, coming through our subconscious, and people are bringing this into matter. We're in the games. There is a games. Which God will we birth? There is a new age, lots of new energy that I was saying earlier, fresh energy, and it's up to us what we bring in. Do we bring in the Christ? Do we bring in the energy of overthrowing the banks, overthrowing the usury, healing, going inwards so we can expand and vibrate, and therefore it will be a ripple effect like water? Or do we bring in this artificial? Because that's what it seems like is happening. And in the Emerald Tablets, which we were reading the other day, it mentions something hidden under the left hand of the Sphinx, I believe. There's lots of gold under there. Well, the left-hand path is associated with going inwards, and it's inwards that you'll find the gold. Whether there's gold under the Sphinx or not, whatever, who cares? The left-hand path is where you'll find the gold. It's going inwards. That's where we find the gold, the spark, and then that's why it's being shunned, ignored, so that this deceiver can go like this, like a little vending machine, and extract the gold, because we don't even know it's there. Most people don't even know that they have that gold within them. So that's what I think is going on. And then last thing, with the ravens turn into a dove, you have the black raven turn into a white dove. The black is associated more with the feminine, the untamable, and the white, the peace, is more the illusion, the white light. And I find that very interesting because ravens are very intelligent. So can't have that. Let's have a dove, peace and love. Just forget about it.
Well, in Norse mythology, the raven is connected to Odin, to Wotan. It's the two ravens, Hugin and Munin, sight and thought, if I'm not mistaken, who are, well, quite literally the eyes and ears of Wotan here on Midgard. So the ravens are, well, divine in a way, really. I mean, doves. You have in the Anglo-Saxon stories, you'll have swans, white swans a lot. There's this this child's song in Dutch which talks about about black swans and white swans and the keys to the gates of England. So it seems that, you know, in Europe, or at least, you know, northwestern Europe, Shinobi, like really our neck of the woods, it's ravens and swans. I know that the Native American have this beautiful story about the raven as well. I should ask my wife about that story. I mean, she's still asleep now, but that the raven used to be white, actually, and they didn't have that croaky voice, but it's because they brought fire to mankind or something, and they burned themselves. I'm gonna look it up because it's such a beautiful story. So cool.
Perhaps they'll emerge again because there's lots of white animals emerging. Like you shared this as well, Stein, haven't you? Perhaps the white raven,
white stag, yeah.
Yeah, the raven brought the fire down from the heavens to save the people, and they were cold, and in the process, they got burned.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
People freezing. Yeah.
That reminds me
You
of
know,
the story of Prometheus as well, and getting burned is to be scapegoated and then block this as well, like block your throat chakra. Not sure where in the world the throat chakra is, but I can guess where it is. And this like the mouth has been blocked by a blue mask, and that color blue is being used by all these corporations. The World Economic Forum has a 666, which is a frequency of blue. This frequency of blue is being used, which is water, magnetism, is being taken rather than drawn in, and they use it to block our mouths with as well. I think that's very profound.
Yeah, that's a good point. They mentioned about how the crow, its voice got affected too, because the
smoke
ruined its voice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting when we look at ravens and crows, especially, you know, there's so much mythology around it. Even in India, you know, it's called Kak Bushundi. And Kak Bushundi is the most revered of all the animals of Shiva. I mean, the Bhairab is also highly revered, which is the dog, which obviously is an ode back to Sirius, the dog star. But the raven or the crow, which are really like the same family. If you think about, you know, ravens and crows, they both relate to the underworld, to those that have passed messages from those beyond the veil of life. And the interesting thing is in the West, how people see them as a negative omen, right? Western cosmology, people like, oh, ravens and crows are signs that someone's going to pass away, bad things are going to happen. And we're talking about Saturn. And this is Saturn's original connection with the underworld, the old school green man connection with decay and the passing of life, you know, as not just the reaper of corn, but the reaper of souls. And so there's this powerful Saturnian connection, which is very interesting because now we're looking at the cube, right? The dice. The dicey thing that we're observing here, which is obviously what the cube represents. And that's about dying, right? The die, rolling the dice, the cube of black cube of Saturn. And that is an ode back to the black sun, which is quite interesting. Now, I think that the myth of the raven, now you guys want to fly with me on this one, okay? So the idea that there are two different poles, there are two different solar potentials. There's the sun that we're experiencing now, which is outward. And then there's a black sun, which we can't see, right? It's a dark sun. It's called a black sun because it's invisible. But I think that within the turning of the ages, there's a repolarization that happens at certain key points of the cycles. And that is like night to day, summer to winter, right? Heat age to cold age, ice age to warm age. And these cycles are bigger and bigger. And there's a bigger night to day cycle. And that's so big that we can barely conceive of it. But they speak of it in the yugas. And that there is a repolarization. So at the moment, Pingala is objective, which is the electron, which is electricity, which is Re, which is On. The word On is obviously an old name of the Egyptian Re god. And so this is outward, which is masculine, because it's coming out of you. But there were times in the past when it was feminine, and it was going into you. And there's a different kind of a light, literally a different frequency of light that we see by. So now we're seeing by this spectrum of light, but there will come a point when things will shift over and we will have the black sun will be our light sun, and this light sun will then be the black sun, if that makes sense, because they will switch. And then the moon will be masculine, the sun will be feminine, Saturn will be feminine, Jupiter will be, you know, and everything will switch over like we see in the ancient past where the sun was feminine, and the moon was masculine, and all of these switches and Venus changing roles. So I think this masculine and feminine polarity that we're experiencing has a lot to do with Ida and Pingala, or, you know, this outward emanation of a particular frequency. The one is the electron, the particular nature of light, which is what's dominant now, and the magnetic nature of light is suppressed. That's the feminine energy. And then that will switch, and then we will be seeing by the currents of magnetism, and the electron will be suppressed. So we won't be so embedded within hard, solid matter. We will be more in the field of the astral consciousness and the etheric to be able to actually move out of our bodies. And I think that goes back to the time of the golden age, when humans were like much more empathic and intuitive and possibly didn't even need to use words to communicate. We were just telepathic because we didn't need to express outwardly. We could inwardly see with each other through the magnetic. And the feminine is like what connects us all to each other. It's that inclusive field of magnetic synthesis and synergy that we share. The electron is me coming out of myself, and I'm separating myself from everybody else. I'm separating myself into my perception of my eyes and my senses and my body, rather than being part of like a inner thing, which is a field that we all share, like magnetism. A particle is very definite. That atom is there. That atom is there. The magnetic and gravitational field is much more subjective and much more of a shared phenomenon that we don't really understand. So imagine when light, a different frequency of light that we're seeing on, it would change the way that we see things. So maybe there was actually a physical time when crows appeared as white to us, because the frequency of light was literally different. And we were literally not observing the electronic matter as much as we were seeing the gravitational magnetic potential between things. And so maybe when looking through that perspective, the color would change. And here's a very interesting point. I don't know if you guys have done this, but it's fundamental occult training. If you take one color and you observe it for a long time, you will see its complementary color, right? Like, let's say you take a disc. So if you take a black disc and you stare at a black disc for a long time, the black disc will start to become white, like a glowing white, silvery kind of a white color. And if you close your mind's eye, you will see that white, silvery, white glowing thing in the back of your mind, right? Inside your head. And so you can, like, when you become more attuned to etheric frequencies of consciousness through the actual senses, because the senses have the potential and the capacity to attune to subtle energy, we start noticing that underneath everything there's this luminosity. It's like a field of luminosity, and on the outside of things you can see that luminosity sort of just leaking out of everything. And then obviously that luminosity, it's got like different bands around it, and so you can see these different parts, like it's like an onion. But the luminosity is like the first field, and if you can pierce that field of luminosity, then you'll see the other bands of like different substance, frequencies of substance. Now, and that luminosity's got a particular timing. It's got a particular frequency, right? And each other thing's got its own like resonant frequency, which is like more faster and changes, like the more colors each have their own flash rate. It literally looks like a flash rate. Now the eyes, interestingly enough, can see this other whiteness. So if you were to stare at a crow for a long time, do you know that crow will turn white? Did you know that? Like, your eyes will do that. So there is actually a frequency of light that makes crows look like, maybe white isn't the right word, but luminosity, like a light, white, luminous color. And so I think that these are physical phenomenon, and that they're being explained through the mythos, times in the past when the universe, this frequency changed because of where we are in relation to our cosmic journey, maybe in relation to other heavenly bodies, and our perception changed, and so the crow's color changed. So they had to now tell this in a simple story that the children and their people would understand, like why the crow is black and why the crow wasn't always black, right? And like, it's very interesting if we look at that, and it's got to do with the fire. Well, I'm curious, was it the fire of the sun that was stolen? Just putting it out there. See,
Possibly.
what fire was stolen? Maybe the
What other fires are
Sorry,
in the
yeah.
heavens? The sun, right? Because
yeah, that's what I'm thinking, and that must be what changes the frequency. The one sun goes to sleep and the other sun awakens, but we can't see the black sun because it's asleep.
So with the black sun and the other sun and them switching over, the way I view it is the sun is associated with gold. Gold is solar energy. We have our internal gold as well. So that this sun outwards comes into us now, the masculine sun comes into us. But when we have our internal gold or our internal flame ignited, which is the feminine, we have to go inwards to expand outwards. That's doing the great work, whatever. It's going inwards, finding the gold, expanding it. Then we become the sun. We all become the sun. Does that make sense? So that sun comes into us. We're getting the outsourced masculine sun, but we have our internal flame, which is the black sun, which is our gold. This is why it's all stuck in the banks, in the matter. And this is why inside of us, it's stuck in the banks as well, waiting for us to go inwards in the waters to extract it. And then I think that process has started. The process has started reversing, where we're going inside, we're extracting it, and we're finding a lot of dark stuff there in the world. As the veil thins between the conscious and subconscious mind, the veil thins on the outside world as well. And this is quite a difficult process. It's like it's birthing something new. It's not easy. It can be very traumatic, but as something emerges, then you create new life, a new perspective. I'd just like to read a little bit from this book. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's Cairo's Book of Numbers. I found it. I think it was like a car boot or something for £1 a few years ago. I've never read it, but I started reading it last night, and I just like to read a little bit. So it's about the lotus, and it's about the black sun, which I think is the lotus, and I'll explain that. So now let us return to the symbolism of 7 for a moment. Of course, that Buddha is always represented as sitting in the center of a lotus. Let us examine then the secret of such a selection. It is not perhaps generally known that the 7 is reproduced in many strange ways in nature herself, and that flowers have not been crossed, by intermingling with other flowers, have their outside petals in the number of 7. But as flowers are so easily crossed with other varieties, and it is so difficult to find a pure type, Buddha took the lotus, which never becomes crossed or loses its individuality. So I find that quite interesting, because the lotus is sometimes seen at the top of the crown with the Ida and the Pingala. And I think that lotus is this part of us which emerges from the center. And I believe that lotuses as well, sometimes they come up from murky water. It's not fresh water, I don't think. And I'm going to look into this, but I think the lotuses tend to come up from, murky water, right? Okay. The word lotus means Ren as well. You can pronounce lotus Ren. And Ren means name, which is our identity. Our lotus emerging from that water, the center of the Pingala, the crown, is to do with our identity. So this ties into the never-ending story as well, where Bastian needs to give this this pearl of wisdom, who would be Sophia inside the shell, a name. That's what we need to do. We need to give our core a name and recognize it, so that our lotus can emerge from this murky water. I find it quite interesting that it kind of relates to like the seed as well. Like you have a seed, and for a seed to grow, it needs memory, which is mem, and ori, both water and light. And if a seed is buried in the dark, if we're in the dark, and if everything we see is black and white, I've heard, and that our brain filters the colors, like everything is black and white, and it's our brain that does the filtration. If our seed is us, our core, and it needs water to grow strong roots. Well, if you poison the well, if you poison the water, it's not going to be able to grow strong roots. And then it's going to be more susceptible to following the light, which is the false light. So yeah, the lotus meaning Ren, and Ren meaning name, it ties in with our identity, and this is the black sun, which is our core. It's more of a kind of internal, and when we go inside, that's how we expand. And I believe that's what the black sun is. It's inside every single one of us, and that's the divine spark, which is the black sun, which is inside all of us, which is what expands, whereas our sun up there comes into us. So yeah.
So could you connect that to the dark night of the soul? Dark night of the soul. Because it is, through that dark night that we find our inner light. It is only in darkness that, we can see the light. It is only in the darkest night that the light shines the brightest. So, talking about sun, soul, black sun, schwarze Sonne, which is it is a solar symbol, kind of related to the swastika. In that way, I've done, well, at least one show with Nick from Occult Rejects on the black sun, and it's a symbol that has long fascinated me, because it can be so many things. Like it could also be the eye, the black hole sun, because the pupil is it is a hole, really. That's why, like during certain surgeries, they can like quite safely stick a sorry if anybody's squeamish, but stick a needle in your pupil, and it won't do any damage because it is hollow. That could be the black hole sun, the black sun as well. Going back to that eye symbolism, which we should really like do something, or just you should do something with Nick from Occult Rejects on that. I'd love to see you to
Set it up, man.
on that.
Drop him a message. I want to talk to people all the time about everything. So just link me up.
I'll shoot him a message. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and also, are you guys familiar with the central sun mentioned by Blavatsky? Have you heard of that, Franklin?
I believe I'm familiar with that.
So that's another possibility that we can consider, because the central sun is within the Earth, and it's accessed through a hole in Antarctica, like the pupil, where Admiral Byrd is playing into. And so that's like the Earth would be like the eye, and that would be its pupil. And then that's the central sun within.
That black rock.
Yeah. Black rock's the opposite, because it's on the surface, but it may have connections to the underworld. But I think really, like, the central sun is supposed to be revered. And like the story of the Brotherhood of Darkness from Thoth from 36,000 years ago, from a channeled tablet that was never actually seen or found. A lot of people have reported that the stories that were given by Dorian are not consistent with the Hermetic stories. They don't seem to have any of the aspects of the magic or the alchemy, or the astrological or philosophical similarities to other Hermetic works. His work seems to be more related to science fiction that was inspired by H.P. Lovecraft. H.P. Lovecraft mentions lizard people and the hollow earth in his work, and he was a contemporary of Dorial. And so Dorial may have just kind of, like Sitchin, taken some creative carte blanche and was a little bit loose with his interpretations, being influenced by the modern age. And we call this modern cultural translation bias. Those are 3 types of bias: modern bias, cultural bias, and translation bias. And so we see that a lot when people do these translations, which is why it's really important to see that document or that tablet be translated by other individuals to cross comparison which people are more familiar with the phraseology and the language of the ancients than the others, so they can get a more accurate depiction of what was really being said there. So I feel like there is more ancient legends about sacred gods in the chthonic realm than there is about evil gods, and the evil gods of the underworld are kind of a newer story, retelling of the old story in like a obfuscated way. So it'd be good to question these things, but it's also good to keep an open eye. And there's also schools of thought that suggest that there's different races of people in that realm, and that some of them favor humanity and some of them do not. And so they're at odds, and they're kind of at war with whether they should protect us or whether they should annihilate us. And so there's a lot there. It's good to keep an open mind about these kind of things. It's not good to necessarily jump on one side of the fence, because we're all still learning about these things, But there's there, and there's they used theurgy when they would like call upon a deity and invoke it in order to get the presence of divine powers, or they could use it to ascend or become merged with the divine. And so this was something that was done by the mystics in the old times. They used astrology and theurgy and magic. Those were the 3 practices that they had used. And we've kind of lost track of theurgy. We don't try to invoke the gods to give us the divine powers as much anymore. That's kind of a thing that's been lost. So I think that's one of the things that's kind of been pushed away from us when we're trying to like beg to God to like do things for us instead of call him in to get our work done. You know what I mean? And help give us blessing within. So things have been really flipped around.
That's really, really interesting. The theurgy, which is a big part of magic, is it not? An occult practice. But I want to centralize this. I can see a golden thread that connects the dark night of the soul, that connects what we were talking about before, the black sun and the light sun, that relates and also draws a distinction with the Blavatsky central sun. Now, the way I always understood Blavatsky's speaking of the central sun, and I think Steiner must have mentioned it too, obviously being a theosophite before he started his movement. My understanding of Blavatsky speaking of the central sun was that you're speaking about the center of the galaxy, and that at the center of the galaxy there's a spiritual center, but that spiritual center is also a gravitational center that keeps everything towards itself, centralized, like a pole generating vortex of power and energy. And it's sort of the proverbial heart of the galaxy that everything is sort of bound to. So that's just the idea of the central sun. And I think that each sun is pulsing out from the central sun. And I think that central sun, when it changes its frequency, like our sun flips its poles every 11 years, right? It literally has a pole reversal. But when all the frequency of light changes, and certain suns go to sleep and certain suns wake up, and it's the opposite frequency. And so that story of is very related to the Yuga story, is very related to the black sun and the white sun, if I can use those 2 terms, the light sun and the black sun polarizing, and that the black sun will become the light sun, but it will be a different kind of light, and the light sun will become a dark sun, because we won't. our perspective will shift to the other depending on what's coming from the center of the galaxy. Now, that's quite interesting. But something that also was said earlier on, and I want to point this out. There's actually evidence. And I want to point out the evidence. And it's circumstantial evidence, but it's really compelling. And we can draw that evidence from allegories from the most ancient writings that we can sort of track. Obviously, Sumerian tablets being the oldest trackable information about this specific story, which is really interesting. And the land of Chem, right? So the land of Chem, now, what's interesting about the land of Chem, which was inherited in Egypt, and they didn't know why. Silver was more valuable than gold, right? So they were mining gold, right? According to the Sumerian story. They were here and they needed gold, right? They were mining gold in a big way. The evidence of the gold exists. Here in my country and in Southern Africa, there are thousands. Let me say that again. Thousands of gold mines that are unaccounted for. We don't know who made them. They are huge, deep, properly made mines. And in some of these mines, there are gold veins that you can literally go in with a hammer and just chip out chunks of gold. In fact, our organized crime syndicates do. And when they do, here in South Africa, they get into gangster fights over who gets to have the gold. And there was one instance where one gang cemented in the walls of the other gang in there fetching the gold, hoping that they would pass away in there so that they could then open the wall up and go in and take the gold. See, one gang was mining the gold, another gang came and cemented up the wall, thinking we'll leave you in there till you're not alive, then open up the wall after a month or whatever, and just take the gold that you mined as a ching ching thank you. And then the police got there and there was a shootout. This is like recent in the last number of years, by the way, last several years. This still happens here. This is why the De Beers gold mining company has bought up huge tracts of land in South Africa and put fences and security around them because of all these gold mines. We don't know who dug them. We don't know where they came from. It's littered across Southern Africa as per the Sumerian writings of the Abzu, which was full of gold mining. So that gives us an insight that when they're talking about the Abzu, they're actually talking about Africa because there's actual physical evidence. But there's more circumstantial evidence than that. And this has got to do with gold is resonating with a particular frequency and silver is resonating with a particular frequency. Now, I think that the gold frequency is related to the dominant energy now, right? The Pingala. The silver is related to the not dominant, the Ida energy, the lunar potential and frequency. So the polarity of lunar and the polarity of solar are in resonance at poles. I want to also point out that in the book that we were doing, where did I put it down? I made notes about it. They speak about the seven beings, right? And he speaks about them in terms of number. Number 1 and 2 are left out. He speaks in terms of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. 1 and 2 is left out. 1 is gold, 2 is silver. That's interesting. The sun and moon are left out of the story, right? But the other 7 influences, and instead of the sun and the moon, stand in for the sun, we have the north node. And stand in for the moon, we have the south node, which is quite interesting because the north node and the south node are considered to be different planets, actually, that are invisible. Different bodies giving off frequencies that are invisible to us, according to the astrology of Vedic astrology, which is really interesting. But here's the circumstantial evidence, which is heavily compelling, apart from all the actual gold mines, right, that we can track. So we can track the Sumerian stories and we can actually, well, they're the gold mines. Okay. So then the Arcadians came along and they turned it into some metaphysical thing about the deities, right? But the earlier writings, 1,000 years before, was slightly different and makes a lot more sense when we look at the gold mines, like to how to interpret those writings. But in ancient land of Chem, silver was more valuable than gold, right? Because silver was more rare than gold. Okay, now I find that interesting. And the reason I find that interesting, it's actually mind-blowing. Do you know that when you're mining other metals, silver is a byproduct that you're basically going to mine with most metals? Do you know how easy it is to mine and process silver? Okay, let me break this down. It takes 80 times the amount of energy to mine and refine gold than what it does silver. Not 8, not 10, not 20, not 50, 80 times the amount of energy. How on earth? Oh, and of course, silver is much more abundant than gold on our planet. There's much more silver in the earth than what there is gold. How on earth could silver have been more abundant than gold? That just doesn't make sense. We were talking about beings that were building big pyramids and building technology because we can see the technology here. They must have had mining. They must have been using earth metals. How could there have not been much silver? Why was the gold in such abundance? Well, the only reason why that would be if they were specifically mining gold and only gold in a wholesale environment to get as much gold as they could out of the earth for some or other reason, right? According to the Sumerian story, they needed the gold to fix their planet, right? So suddenly gold was in abundance because they were mining so much of the gold it was just laying around, right? In fact, the Queen of Sheba had her whole palace decked in gold, according to the old legends. Like the roads were covered in gold, right? Like that's how much gold there was. And that, of course, is in Africa. Of course, of course, all those gold mines in the southern Africa. So what happened was those beings obviously left in a hurry, and they left mountains of gold behind in Africa. And us humans were like, okay, well, we were obviously the people mining the gold. We took it and we built our city with the gold, right? It actually tallies. And here's the interesting point about gold and silver, right? Silver is the nature of silver. Silver was used for the high priestesses, right? So the Isis cult needed silver. Silver was used for divinatory work. Silver was used to influence the inner perception, right? I've never been attracted. Silver was actually called white gold in ancient Egypt, by the way. I don't know if you know this. Isn't that interesting? They actually related the metal silver to gold, which they related to the sun, but not the sun. I think that there's mixing up of our mythologies of relation to the lunar and the black sun and Saturn. Even though Saturn is very much related to our black sun throughout all of our magical traditions, I think there's a lunar quality to what we're looking at here, and it has to do with the polarity of masculine and feminine vibratory frequencies emitted from the central sun that hits our solar system and activates certain solar potentials in our solar system, changing the sun's frequency, causing other frequencies to be emitted. Whether it's actually that our physical sun shifts its polarity and starts putting out the opposite frequencies, or whether it's the different sun awakening, whichever of these are true, I think it all points back to the central sun. And with regards to the dark night of the soul, now this is important because Stein isn't easy. No, Stein fell off. With regards to the dark night of the soul, this really tallies in, because the dark night of the soul has got to do with crossing the proverbial abyss of the unconscious. And the crossing of the proverbial abyss of the unconscious is traveling out into the unknown, into the dark place, and it's facing all of our shadow self parts. Now, our shadow self parts are a dissidence, and the dissidence is created because we've got an ego which is expressing who we are as a sun, right? And then we've got a persona who is reflecting that expression back in towards ourselves, right? And that reflecting that silver reflection back in towards ourselves causes the dissonance, because in the process of reflecting it back upon ourselves, we reflect upon it, right? And as we reflect upon it, we think about it. And as we think about it, we think about who we are. We think about how we should behave. We think about our, like, the way we are presenting ourselves and come across to other people, and we try to reshape our persona in relation to our perspectives of who and what we think we want to portray ourselves as. That's the persona. So we then project back into ourselves a different version of who we are expressing as who we are, as the sun of our beings shines. And so that creates within ourselves a dissonance of who we are being and who we want to be and who we think we are. And that dissonance produces a dislocation within us and a competition of who I think I am now dominate who I am, and then we start to suppress, or even due to our emotional reactions to what we are reflecting into ourselves with, we start to automatically repress parts of ourselves that we feel don't tally up with who we expect ourselves to be and who we want ourselves to portray ourselves as. And in this, there is this disassociation that happens, and then parts of ourselves get sort of cordoned off or walled off, and those parts of ourselves are repressed. And the whole act of soul retrieval in shamanism is to dive into the unconscious and retrieve those parts of ourselves and bring them back to ourselves, so that we can, in wholeness of being, allow the ego to express who we are and the persona to reflect that back perfectly without distortion. And when the reverberation of the reflection of the silver current back into ourselves and the golden current coming out of ourselves are in synchronized balance, there is a harmony. And that harmony is when we are in a state of peace. So the dissonance produces this lack of peace, because it's like one frequency and another frequency, and they're fighting. And in between these two frequencies, there's all sorts of dissonance and messy. Now, when we're going through the dark night of the soul, we are going into our subconscious. We're going in with the silver current, and we are having to face the dissonance created by the inner reflection of the silver current and how it contradicts the golden current expression of our natural egoic expressions, as opposed to our perceived nature, who we want to align ourselves with or become. And that is why we tend to not be who we are, and why we tend to pretend to be what we think we ought to be, and why we are always striving to be something other than who we are, because we feel we're not enough, because that silver reflection back into ourselves produces this dissonance, and the whole act of going within means facing that. And that is the presence of the dark night of the soul, and it's because of that dissonance between the masculine and the feminine within ourselves. And so that's quite interesting. And I think, and one of the points, just to finish this off, that really puts the cherry on the top, my cherry, is that the feminine within us is being repressed by our societal attitudes and by our conditioning and by the media and our education. So we tend to be trapped within this pattern, and this pattern is push the feminine down, push it away, deny it, just be the ego. And so we are trying to be the ego and pretending that this persona isn't there. And what happens? The persona gets into a state of dominance because no one's watching the persona, and the persona starts to supersede the ego. And then the persona sits on top of the ego, and now the ego gets confused about the ego's role, because the persona is trying to play the ego's role. So the ego then is left to play the persona's role. Can you see in the world that they want men to play the role of the mother and mothers to play the role of the warrior? Does that make sense? Why they want this dissonance? Because in shaping this dissonance in the outworld world, they make it more difficult for us to traverse the inner field of ourselves because of this juxtapositioning of ego and persona, where the ego should be a sun that's shining outwards and the silver should be reflecting light back in towards ourselves. And what is being shone out should be equity. There should be an equity between what is given and what is received. But the ledgers do not balance. What is received is different to what is being given, and this not balancing the ledgers is creating a continuity of debt. And that debt has got to do with the perception of who we are. And that is, I think, why the dark night of the soul has become such a dredging, dreary journey through suffering. Sorry, that was a long one.
That was good. No, also, the Quicksilver was said to be representative of transformation. And so it represents Mercury, but it also contains the silver within it. And so I think that transformation that goes along with going into the dark night of the soul, and it's a dark night. By going into the dark night of the soul, they're saying this is going to be a hard time. So you start off that, I think in order to go through this self-transformation, it's usually said that people will have to either go through into rock bottom in life and then want to start over, or into a near-death experience to want to go through into this whole process. So already things have gotten so bad that you're willing to do anything you can to start again. And in the process of going into the dark night of the soul, things even get worse than that. You're in a rough spot. You still got your friends around, but then you decide to transform your ways. And in the process, you push your whole posse away and you start to develop a new sense of self. And you push yourself into isolation by pushing away your previous associations of people that you were with, that you were involved in a bad lifestyle with. And so in order to change your lifestyle into a new lifestyle, you have to change your crowd that you were hanging around. And in that process, you go into that solitude, and then you feel so lost and isolated and alone, and you're going through all these changes, and you have to cast out all of your assumptions and beliefs. So everything that you knew to be true has to be casted aside, and it's very rewarding in the end. But in order to rebuild your whole world, it takes a whole staggering work to be able to go into figuring out, what do I want to become? And you have to really be determined to become what you set out to be. And so it takes determination and persistence and a lot of willpower to be able to work this out. And so I always tell people, if you want to go into shadow work and you want to go through self-transformation, make sure you really want it, because if you don't really need it and you don't really want it, you might just pull back. And so it's not something that you can easily pull back from once you casted out your assumptions. You got to reform. You can't just end up in nothing. So it's a tough situation. But once you get there, you have to carry forth. And once you get through it all and you start to rebuild yourself, it starts to become more and more rewarding as you take those steps. And in the end, you're glad that you went through all the trouble that it was worth, because the payoff in the end is really worth it, that you find inner joy within to replace what used to be that inner turmoil that you carried around unmediated within you. And so it's the darkness, it's the shadow, but you bring the light within, and shining that light into the shadow, you have to love your demons inside. You can't just try to cast them out and say, or try to hide them away. You have to face your demons, and you have to dance your demons out into joy. And you develop that inner joy and peace. And it's a beautiful thing. And people see that in you afterwards. And it really, people will gravitate to you if you have that inner joy. And sometimes all the wrong people will come to you, try to steal that joy away from you, because they're jealous. They want what you have, or they wish they had what you have. So that can be another challenging part of the dark night of the soul as well. You have to come up against these moths that are coming to the flame and learn to protect yourself, which is another part of the journey that's self-rewarding. You learn to have that guard for yourself, that you're going to be able to have discernment of who's the right people to let into my world. I've already casted out all my good friends that were not the right ones in the end. Now I don't want to let in these people that are coming up to me, and you might be a little bit desperate. I do want to make some new friends. Maybe this one's a good one, but you're going to start to notice, no, this person doesn't resonate with my path right now. So I'm going to have to keep walking and keep stepping on. And then eventually you're going to start to see people that do resonate with your new path, and they're going to welcome you in. You're going to feel that when their understanding of you and your understanding of them, and you're on the same page, these are going to be the people that are going to be my new tribe. And that's when the real joy starts to begin and pay off big time. That's when things start to blossom.
Yeah, man. I really resonate with that so much, because as I started sort of not going out drinking every weekend and stuff, it was as I started kind of, I guess, my inner work has been, it's always a process, a journey, but it's been like finding out who we are, where we've come from, where we're going, and where do I fit inside the story. Like, what's my story? What's my store of energy? Which is our internal flame. That is our story. It's like in the library, that's where the light is buried. And that library of information, of the knowing, the gnosis, is within us. And I think to get there, my journey hasn't been through meditation, but through mediation, to kind of get, I guess, two opposing, I think we spoke about this last time, two opposing bits of information or paths, and kind of dissolve it and put them back together, and sort of like weave in between, like read between the lines, and then coming on the round table, having conversations with you guys has helped kindle that flame. Franken, I've shared an image. Would you be able to share it on the screen? I'd just like to speak about there's the next one. Oh yeah, just quickly with Quicksilver and Mercury, Indy. I think in Tartaria they used to use spinning Mercury to get power from the ether, to create a quantum engine, and I think that is also to do with, it has anti-gravity effects. So there's less dense energy. If gravity is kind of holding things together, things would be much lighter, and that ties into the Great Pyramid as well, and perhaps being used to create hydrogen, which would go up into the atmosphere, and then the whole realm would be much lighter as well as hydrogen, as well as people being lighter. You know, people's minds being lighter, the heart's less heavy, and just the whole of the atmosphere of the weather, which is we ether. The weather is us. The outside weather is in our mind. The all is mind. So yeah, this is an image of Narcissus, and this myth has helped me kind of understand what's going on in our realm, like the distortion. You're talking earlier about I can't remember what you mentioned, like a dissidence or something, a kind of a distortion of the masculine and the feminine. So the men being the women being the men. And I can kind of see it reflected in this story, because the tale of Narcissus, his sister is cast out. She's not even in the story that most people read. But he had a twin sister. And I always view Narcissus as the conscious mind, and his twin as the subconscious. The conscious is more outwards, and the subconscious is more inwards. And what's interesting about this story is that when there's a distortion in the matter of the frequency, that you can't reflect. When there's a distortion in architecture, music, there's a kind of we find it more hard to move in circles and to spiral, to go inwards. Is the kind of like very jagged energy, more dense energy. And I think it's so important to people to understand this myth, because it's just a story of us, really. It's when Narcissus was looking into the matter, into the water to reflect, he was rooted to the spot because he thought, the story goes that he was so obsessed with himself. He just had the conscious mind, I guess. He wasn't able to connect with the subconscious. He wasn't able to go into the water. And the distortion I'm talking about is created by AI, by this wind, which we were talking about with Magick earlier, this wind, which is distorting the matter, the water. And this Echo, who's on the side doing this in the myth, would be AI. There's an artificial distortion in the matter, in the material. But again, the water would also represent a bridge or a portal. And I guess that would be a bridge between Narcissus and his sister, the masculine and the feminine, so that we can't merge and recognize that one is the other. And also, you see daffodils there on the side. The Narcissus flower is also called a daffodil, and daffodils have a compound that helps treat Alzheimer's. And of course, Alzheimer's is to do with memory. So this myth is a reflection of memory. It's the mem, the subconscious, the water, and the ori, which is the light, which is the conscious mind. And then when they come together, that's when we truly remember who and what we are and what our place is in this universe, and where we've come from and where we're going. That is the central point. The mem and the ori is what ignites the flame within. The water and light is what helps the seed to grow strong roots and to grow into a tree. So yeah, this myth has helped me understand, but sometimes it's good to have knowledge, to know the ledge, and then knowing a myth is to have the knowledge. But to know that there's a ledge, we can break that ledge down. And by looking into this myth, I saw that there was a ledge that had been put there, a barrier on our perception of reality. And then when you look deeper into it and break down the barrier, you can see that that wasn't the true myth. The true myth, there was he had a twin sister who was killed or cast out. So this is a story of us and how our twin, our daemon, or the other part of us has been cast out. Like this divine feminine, the subconscious, our emotions have been sort of suppressed. So then they come to the surface in strange ways because people are way too over emotional, be that they get really, really angry or really, really upset, but not really taking action and sitting with it and doing anything about it. It's more of like a moaning, like, oh, this is so bad in the world and things, and then or just getting angry. There's two opposing forces. So I think that myth for me personally has helped me kind of just sit with the story and kind of understand it at more of a deeper level. And Indy, just quickly, you mentioned the inner joy. So the inner joy is that's how we cultivate our energy, is finding the inner joy, which is the inner G, which is our inner guide, inner gnosis, or the inner jinn, the engine. Our engine is the inside systems which run things, and this is what I like to call the gnosis terms. The terms of the gnosis is to understand systems, internal systems and outside systems, and that is the gnosis terms, how we understand systems.
Yeah, and I wanted to mention that it was great that you mentioned how we're coming out of the gold on the outside, where the gold is just constant. I mean, you have the night and the day with the sun. So, in the night, we sleep in the night. Some people that stay awake through the night, it said that maybe they're on the dark side. But if you are worshiping the sun and you're with the sun, you just get used to the sun, the constancy of the sun as it moves across the horizon in the 12 steps of Horus. But as we go into the shadow and we go into the silver, we start to experience going into the new moon, into the phases of the moon. we start in the new moon where it's blank. We cast aside everything. We become empty. And we go into the darkness. And we start to bring the light into the darkness. And as the light comes into the darkness, we come into the crescent moon and into the half moon, into the gibbous moon. And then we come into the full moon. And at the full moon, we've reached our fullness. And so through that process, we then are obligated to help others and to guide them into the process of self-mastery. And so that phasing of the different phases of the moons perpetually repeats as we guide others through the process as well. And it helps us remember,
that's
through those phases. Go ahead.
no, sorry, brother. I thought you had stopped. Please finish what you wanted to say, dear indie brother.
Oh, that was just it. I was just saying, it helps remind us that we're going through those phases. So we're in our minds, we're imagining the phases of our own experience too, while they're going through their phases.
I think that's so on point. And this Narcissus story is such a, on point
Heavy hitter.
concept of, and it sort of all really ties into what we're talking about, like the sun, the black sun, the ego, the persona. Now that in this story, look at this image. This image basically captures the story so beautifully, right? So here's the ego, right? And he is obsessed with his own reflection, right? He's obsessed with his own persona. But what happens is, in the idea of the story of Narcissus, is that wouldn't have a lover. Narcissus was very beautiful, right? And Narcissus rejected having a lover or a suitor or a relationship, because Narcissus found every other human being to be lacking, right? He has a very important point, right? Found them lacking. And because of their own vanity, they were cursed by the gods. And in that curse, they ended up falling in love with their own reflection in the water. And that caused them to become decrepit, old, and pass away. So what is that now in terms of the psychology of us, right? When we are self-obsessed, when our ego becomes so self-obsessed because it's denying our own reflection, we start putting, there's this dissidence, and the self-defense mechanism of the self and of the consciousness is to point that outwards. So we don't generally reflect that within ourselves, because that's a form of depression, and it's got its own mental illness, but most people point that outwards. So we basically become hypocrites. I think this is a story of hypocrisy, right? We point fingers out and go, look at your fault. You're wrong. Your fault there. Look at your fault there. And all those faults that we're seeing in other people are the faults within ourselves that we haven't acknowledged, because this is how the shadow works. When that dissidence becomes pronounced and we cannot acknowledge how far our reflection is from who the true us is, that dissidence is such a powerful polarity. For us to bridge that gap is to acknowledge that we are not perfect. And the ego doesn't like that. So the ego then points outwards and says, well, all of the dissidence is actually not inside me, it's inside you. It's inside you. It's inside you. And what happens is everybody outside gets rejected. And the reaction then is to say, well, I'm going to pretend that my persona is perfect, right? And I'm going to fall in love with my own. This is narcissism, right? Like, my persona is perfect. Every fault that I can see in my persona is not my persona. It's this one. If you notice a fault in my persona, it's your mistake, right? And that dissidence, what does that do to your prana and your life force? It blocks it, because your life force wants to flow through the parts of you. So it's like saying that you're gonna, okay, I don't like that part of my body, I'm going to stop the circulation going there. And then it stops going there. Oh, I don't like that part of my body. Then sooner or later, each part of that body is going to die, right? And when enough parts of that body dies, does not alive anymore, then the circulation as a whole won't work anymore. And slowly but surely, the whole body will just pass away. Well, spiritually and psychologically, this is what's happening due to the dissonance between the reflection in the water, right? And then the only thing that is left is to become obsessed with that reflection, right? Because now we need to tell ourselves that everything that we've done has not been in vain. And so I think like this is such a beautiful story that embodies the persona, becoming obsessed with the persona because of the denial of this persona. And what happens is that persona is then manipulating us. What does it mean to become obsessed by something? Well, it means that that thing is controlling our lives, right? Become obsessed with alcohol. The alcohol will control your life. Become obsessed with a woman. She will dominate your life. Become obsessed with your career. It will control your life, right? You got to have a balance in life and not be obsessed, because obsession means possession. They're basically the same. So he's becoming possessed by his reflection, and that possession is that the persona is taking over the ego, and the ego is then becoming obsessed with the persona, and everything else is just denial. And what is the word denial? Denial is the source of life. Denial is to reject life, to reject life force. And the more we reject life force, the weaker we get energetically until we no longer exist. So I think it's such a beautiful myth.
It is, and I never knew about the twin sister. That's really interesting. I could maybe elaborate on that a little bit. I feel like potentially he found the beauty in his sister, in his twin sister, that he saw in himself, and he might have been focused on her and fixated on her. Maybe noticing that she reminded him of himself, and that other people didn't really have the qualities that they had, and so he might have even yearned for her, but she may have pushed him away, and so he was left with himself, but he was content with that because himself also reminded him of his sister, and so it was like a dual entendre where they were both kind of wrapped within this obsession, and it was so dysfunctional in many ways, like in the sense that she may have rejected him, and then he was pushed himself into isolation as a result, and he then saw people as lower than them. And so it's really interesting how it all plays out when you add the twin sister into the narrative, because it makes the story a little bit more dynamic than if it was just him. It seems like kind of lonely if it was just him out there, really. But when the sister involved, it's almost like he has that conflict in his heart, and then he has to dwell in that and come to terms with it. And through the process, he takes himself to comfort himself by his image that maybe reminds him of her. So it can get even deeper when you add that part to the story. So thank you for adding that.
Yeah, man. I can't help but think of the inner child as well when I think of Narcissus and the separation of, or like narcissism. I think it stems from a stuck inner child, which happens through trauma or drama and a distortion, so you're not able to access your inner child. I mean, it does come out, but the shadow comes out, if that makes sense. Whereas the divine child is the more of it's wisdom. Come on, children are wisdom. Children are wise, right? Children come into this world like dreaming. Like there's a phrase, life is a dream from which we all must wake before we dream again. We forget. As a child, you come in and you're dreaming different worlds and bringing things into being. That's the divine child. But I think there's things which are done, and then that part of us gets stuck. And this tale reflects that to me, because we have to travel the waters. We have to go into the water to find this inner child, and it ties in with Pluto being the 9th planet and that being removed. The capstone of the pyramid, the top of the pyramid being a number 9. If you use the Enneagram, the 3, 6, and 9, or energy, frequency, vibration, it's the vibration which is being removed. Number 9 is the I, which is the individual, the individuation, which what this is all about, which is our divine child, our divine spark. This capstone of the pyramid, which is Pyre Amid, the fire in the middle, has been removed. So rather than it kind of coming from the deep, from the waters and up and expanding outwards, there's a kind of a blockage there. And I think that for all these things to be removed, it's all part of the distortion. Because obviously the central pillar, the number 9, would be what connects either side as well. So if you want to disrupt both sides, you just remove the central and you keep it stuck and trapped. And how this ties in with the myth of Narcissus and his sister is because I view things as symbolically, literally, and metaphysically as well. Kind of find what the core truth is, because we could be lied about, the stories could be lied and stuff, hence with this myth of Narcissus, like the sister being removed and the story of, oh, he was just obsessed with himself and stuff. Yeah, but why was he obsessed with himself? It's because the reflective part was removed, and to reflect is to go inwards. And if you don't have the inwards, if you aren't connected to the subconscious, you'll just be conscious, which is like 5% of who we are. The rest, the subconscious, is like 95%. Our DNA, we have 95% junk DNA. This is all tied in because it's light in water. It's in the water you find the light. It's going into the water. But if there's a distortion in the water, you're going to reject it and not want to look at the reflection. It's the same as in the matter. If there's a distortion in the material realm, people are going to want to reject it and think that this world is a prison planet, which couldn't be further from the truth. This isn't a prison planet. That's one potential, but it seems that there's very clever things done to distort reality to make us think that we're all trapped here and that, you know, our Lucius is recycled and stuff, rather than it just being like it's a place to learn and to grow and to go outwards. We need to go in, not just constantly going outwards and outsourcing stuff.
I think both are true. Yes, but when I look at the original Gnostic documents, right, without all that nonsense that everybody else has interpreted, because when you look at the original Gnostic documents, they're very sparse. There's pieces of text, then there's like pieces of text that was lost, then there's pieces of text, and so you've got little pieces, and you've got to turn them into a narrative, because they don't read like a narrative. And that's sort of the thing about, especially you look at the Nag Hammadi scrolls. So what happens is people read the Nag Hammadi scrolls and they add in the missing bits with their own words. And now that's what we are being taught is Gnosticism, about the prison planet idea. But if you look at the original Gnostic texts, and we did cover it in the creation myth of the Gnostics, which actually gives a powerful hint to this. It suggests that Yaldabaoth, right, who facilitated the creation of everything in this world, was originally trying to copy the blueprint of the divine plane. Now, here's the story of Narcissus again. Wow. But now we're looking at it on a cosmic scale. So in the story of Narcissus, right, there is this Yaldabaoth who has this memory of this divine feminine that he can't remember, right? And I'll break it down in a Narcissus idea. He can't see her, can't relate to her, can't acknowledge her. So he looks at his own reflection in the waters, right? Because he thinks he's all that there is. And he then, within that self, he breaks himself to pieces. He starts to corrode it himself, and from out of the pieces he pulls out the archons, because they didn't exist. And he pulls out all these archons, and he leaves a major part of himself as the main archon, who will later be called Samael, for example, right? And all of these archons, then the Elohim, become the agents of creation that makes the waters reflect the divine realm from which he has come, that he has forgotten, that has passed away. He then becomes self-obsessed with his creation, with the reflection in the water of himself that he has left, because the creation involves him breaking himself to pieces to put himself back together externally as the creation of the world that we experience. His obsession with this becomes the undoing of Yaldabaoth. However, here's where it gets interesting. In the process of this creation, Sophia is present, and Sophia sneaks in, and she sneaks in and she purifies this creation. So this creation was created like a prison world. It truly is a prison world. However, when he wasn't looking, Sophia came in and put the divine spark in humanity. And in the process of her putting the divine spark in humanity, she left a purifying potential within this prison world, so that this prison world now has the divine spark of transcendence into the divine kingdom. So this prison world now has become the school of returning back to divine, because it is, like you say. So I hold both of these ideas in my consciousness simultaneously, because that's how I interpreted those Nag Hammadi's texts of the creation, the Gnostic idea, which is why I'm always shooting down all this Gnostic nonsense, the TikTokers and the YouTube shorts, and everybody talks about Gnosticism, but they have all read the other people's interpretations. They haven't actually really interpreted for themselves fully to recognize and realize, hold on, what is the implication? Why does Sophia come back here? And when Sophia comes back here, she actually starts to play a role here, and she gets a different name and a different form in her form here. And so in the Kabbalah, they speak about the Neshama. And the Neshama, this is Sophia. This is this inner potential to learn and transcend and grow. So what she does is she plants within humanity that purifying intelligence, that potential to turn any experience into a divine experience of learning, recapitulation towards the original state of being, which I think is the human goal, to reach back to that original state of being where there is the peace and the awareness of transcendence and understanding the multi-dimensional fractal universe that we are an expression of, sort of like a miniature imprint of this big universe, like a little piece of it, like a drop of water that really holds all the qualities of water, but it's just a little drop, but it's the same water as in the big water, you know? And so, yeah, I think that both, I don't see why it has to be either or. Does that make sense? I think it can be both at the same time, even though it's a contradiction.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting from your research and understanding that it's gone from a prison to a school, because I view it as it's gone from a school to it's going towards a prison. But where does it begin and where does it end, right? Because the way I perceive that is it's a school, it's been a school, but now with the AI, the artificial, there's this false matrix, or if this is a false matrix, another bubble or false matrix being built, but with this digital, you know. So, but I like to think that there can't just be, everything can't be its divine, its potential. there has to be like layers, and you have to come in and come out. It's like with alchemy, it's just a constant process. It's not like, oh, I've reached the top, like now it's done. It's like you've got to go back down. And I think that this realm it seems to be like a vortex. Like Earth is an anagram of heart, and the heart is the fourth chakra, and it's a vortex, the heart. And this place seems to be the center of things. Perhaps it's the heart of this universe, and things come in and things go out. But there's things which have come in, which like this game or school or whatever it is being corrupted. And I'm not sure if the core program was corruption, but there definitely is now. And I think all the stories of the demiurge and stuff, it's like it may be that, but I can say that it's definitely a warning for a future timeline. And it's like things which Thoth in the Emerald Tablets was talking about in the past in Atlantis. We can see that playing out now with things trying to come into this realm, and like this manipulation of trying to like basically push people down, like suppress energy or keep it trapped and stuck via angles. So yeah, perhaps it was a prison and a school, then a school, then a prison. You know, either way, I think we can look at things that have happened in the past and where we are now and where we're going with the future, that it seems like the material is trying to be turned into a prison, like with this AI, all-seeing eye everywhere. Like here in the UK, have people in government who are saying they're basically trying to expand prisons so that the prison is the whole of the UK, that everyone's observed and watched all the time, like Orwell spoke about. And it's like, I view that as, you know, the watchers always watching. And it's like, they're trying to, I can't help but think and feel at my core that this is a school and it was created with good intention, but there's a distortion, and that now it's being turned into a prison so that we reject this place, so that the ones who feel connected to the earth want to reject it because it's becoming like a prison and they think it's always been like that. So we just have to transcend and leave this place, where really what we need to be doing is going inwards, finding that black sun and expanding so that we create a powerful vibratory energy here which transcends beyond time, and we bring this fifth dimensional reality perspective density here and make this place less dense, because there's so much density. There's a lot of dense energy, and I think that we need to go inwards and then take that journey so then we can expand, and that vibration will ripple through all the waters, and hopefully people will find clarity and be able to see more clearly, and then be like, actually, this place, there's enough for everybody on this earth here. It's just a few which manipulate the many. And that ties in as well to the conscious and the subconscious. Okay, the Illuminati, the enlightened ones, whatever. You have the 5%, 1% running the rest of the show. It's the conscious mind, which is this kind of light out the front, but really it's the backstage which does most of it. The backstage is us, is the majority of the people, whether ones who claim to be the Illuminati or the enlightened ones and stuff. They're really the false light. It's actually really the 99%, 95% which run the show, and that's us. That is the humans, whereas it's these human shells, but there's not a human inside. And then with NPCs and soulless beings, no one comes into this realm without a soul. The soul is extracted so that other beings, which shouldn't be in this realm, they come from a lower dimensional reality. It's not their time to come in here, but they come in these flesh vehicles, parading as humans, and therefore people think that humanity is bad when it's not. Humanity is good. We come in, we learn, and we leave. But yeah, long rant. That's my perspective on things. That it's, if we see like the placebo effect, let's just, it's giant placebo. If we think it is good, it will become good. If we think it is bad, it's going to come bad. And that's it's our subconscious that runs that, the collective that runs that. So let's switch up the program. Let's view that yes, there is a false matrix being built. But what if this isn't a false matrix? What if this is just a womb? And what if we need to embrace the mother, which is outside the universe, so that we can not reject the mother, the matter, but go back into ourselves. So we vibrate, and this vibration goes out to the mother, so that our potential can be birthed in this realm.
I totally agree with you. You know, like that's definitely the goal that we have. And I just I think Indy's maybe gonna want to say something too. I just want to just say one thing, that when I think of like the creation, I don't think of it as something that happened, even though we speak of it in past tense, and they write of it as in past tense, because the human brain is aligned with linear time. So, but I think we're talking about circular time when we talk about the creation story. So it's actually happening now. It's all happening now. So right now, this universe is being created like a matrix prison. And right now, there is a spiritual imprint of Sophia being imprinted in through us into the world to redeem the world. And so I think that there is a duality, but they're both happening at the same time. And maybe like seasons, the one becomes dominant and the other one becomes dominant and the other one becomes dominant. And it's like this patterns that we will see reflected in different time zones. But I always think of it as being circular time happening all right now. And I think like both things are there, and they both are like Sophia didn't, the original plan for creation wasn't to entrap humanity. But Yaldabaoth got his own ideas. And so Sophia had to intervene. So you can see how it started with one, then the other, then the other. But they're both happening simultaneously. So I think there's this absolute duality here that seems to be like a big part of it. And interestingly enough, the story of the fallen ones, or the Igigi or the Grigori, that seems to tally up as well with the idea of turning this place into a proverbial control matrix place where humanity was sort of controlled. And I think it's like a cyclical nature of time that we have to relive our traumas, the same as somebody with a psychological trauma relives their traumas periodically and psychically. I think we're as a planet doing that. Indy, brother, was there something you wanted to say? And your lights, is your electricity turned off or something?
Yeah, the sun's about to come up, so I want to see the twilight. It's a sacred hours. But I wanted to mention something about, in the comments, they mentioned about what you're saying is amazing about the heart-centeredness. And I also want to elaborate on that as well. And I want to thank you for mentioning all that, Shinobi. And I think it's part of the process of self-mastery. We all start in a process where we're in mind-centeredness, and we're kind of pushed into that societally. And the mind plays tricks on us. And so the mind will lead us into projection through denial. And so we don't really focus on our heart space, where the heart's saying like, oh, we're in pain, like we're carrying all this hatred and it's making things hard. It's making it hard for me to beat and keep my rhythm. And it's torture. But the mind drags the heart through that stuff as long as we let it. And the heart's always there to remind us that this is a burden. This mind is a burden. This denial and this projection, blaming other people for our issues, is not helping this heart heal. And so when we finally start to go into that self-mastery, and we start with self-understanding and go to self-forgiveness, and then we start to open up that heart space and start to deal with what's considered to be like a can of worms in there that's been stagnating in there for a long time. It's been suppressed. And so when we start to open up that energy, it's a handful, but it's really worth starting to deal with that, because you have to do that at some point in your life. And they say, if you don't open your heart before a death, that you've lost your chance. And it's a really beautiful process. When we do that, we go into the heart space and we develop compassion from first becoming compassionate to the self, and then becoming forgiving to the self. And then we start to see others that way. We start to say, oh, look, I was in a way where I was in denial and I didn't even know. How many other people are struggling with this right now? Now I feel like I could help these other people heal their hearts. And so by healing ourselves, it kind of drives us towards the push to be able to guide others to healing themselves as well. And it's a beautiful transformation that we make through that process. When we open our hearts, we then gain like a new navigational system where we're starting to see things beyond the surface. We're starting to feel the vibrations of those around us in a deeper sense. And when we use the heart and the mind together, that's when we can really start to blossom forth, and we can use our intuition alongside our rational thinking. That's a beautiful combination. Now, going to either extreme is going to be difficult. We got a lot of people at my spiritual church that are all emotion, but there's no reason. They said there's only love and there's only light. And they said nobody ever has to forgive anyone else because nobody could ever do anything wrong. All mistakes are good. And I think to myself, really? I think all of the relationships I've ever had in my life, if there was ever conflict, without forgiveness, it was never going to last. It was going to be a self-destruct. And when there was forgiveness, it really rekindled things to even larger degree than things were in the first place. Like, people have a connection and they go through conflict. And if they were able to make it through that conflict together, it really strengthens the bond. So I feel like people build resilience through that, and then they get a deeper sense of connection through the ability to find forgiveness and be able to reconcile the conflict. I think that's a big part of being able to have a person that's going to be able to have that resilience to be able to step through difficult times and come through on top through support and love and compassion.
You know, I think this is. Sorry, brother. I thought you had ended there. I think this is why they need to separate us from each other. Why they need the women and the men at odds. Why they need racial conflict. Why they need financial class conflict. Why they need political leftism, rightism. Why this entire paradigm of polarity is being used to enslave us, because I think that prison that we're talking about is exactly what you were just talking about now, Indy. The real prison is that we are being imprisoned from each other, and we are like being put in little lonely prisons of ourselves. And in that prison, we're looking for other people that are in the same prison as us and going like, hey, we're all in the left political prison. Let's all be in the left political prison together. It's left political prison versus right political prison. Or we're in the men's prison, let's be against the women's prison. Or we're in the African black people's prison, let's be against the white people's prison. Or we're in the a Mexican prison, let's be against the white prison. Or like who's building the wall anyway? You know, it's if it's not one, and if it's not one thing, it's another. And it's like you say, they want to create this dissidence between us, because this dissidence between us is what causes us to become vulnerable. I think that's exactly how we will, and here's where the key is, how we will unravel the system.
Yeah, and that's egoic thinking. We the ego is the delusion of separation. And that is what that mind prison brings us into. We are only focused on our separations. We don't focus on our connections. So we look for those people that are like just like us. It's like, how can I find something that's just like me? Because I can't handle dealing with anything that's different. And I want somebody that's just going to be on the same page. But after going through self-mastery, you're willing to be around people that have different understandings, and you appreciate those understandings now, because it allows you to imagine the possibilities of expanding your horizons. And it also reminds you of why you value your own values. And so you can appreciate that they have their own values that they can value for themselves, that you don't have to agree with. And that it illuminates the fact that you have your own understanding, and that it doesn't have to be in conflict with theirs, that you can actually be understanding of their values system and their prerogatives, but they don't have to trample yours. You can allow them to simultaneously exist. And in that sense, through self-mastery, we start to see each other for our common ground instead of just noticing the differences.
Yeah, man. Just going to share an image file.
I see someone's talking about doxing here.
Doxing?
Dox, not trying to be unseen. Oh, okay. Please, let me help you, brother.
I'm just going to load these 4 images up. So, because this ties into the opportune moment or time, which is Kairos time, which is another perception of time that people have, that's been kind of cast out. People know time is just chronos, like linear time. So I'm going to try and I'm going to share a couple of images here, although I can't skip between them. So Franklin, I might have to get you to do that in a sec. Because it ties in with water, our spark, DNA, our perception of reality. So here we go. So you can see the first image I shared is the North Pole of Saturn, which is a hexagram. And people think Saturn is Satan and how it controls the false matrix reality grid. Well, time is just to do with our perception of reality. It's not out to get us. It's just us that perceives it. Like, we have to go beyond time and then into space. This is what the 3D to 5D is. It's kind of beyond time through that kind of perception. I forgot to share an image. So you can see there that structured water looks like a hexagram. That's when water is happiest. And that's also called 4th phase water, or exclusion zone water. I think I might have to get rid of one of these images because it's not letting me share that last one. Yeah, could you skip to the next image, Franklin? The one with the writing. So yeah, exclusion zone or easy water.
My screen was going all over the show. I had to try and get it right.
Yeah, so it's also known as 4th phase. We have the heart is the 4th chakra. So the number 4 also relates to number 13, which is associated with men. Which is, of course, water as well. So easy water surrounds and stabilizes DNA, potentially mediating electromagnetic signals and cellular interactions. So there's water, 4th phase water, plasma, which surrounds our DNA, which is our spark, our light within, which I would also say is related to the subconscious, because we have 95% so-called junk DNA and 95% of our consciousness is subconscious, is hidden. So there's hidden light in the water, and there's also the hidden veil of the subconscious realm. But I just find it's very interesting that the North Pole of Saturn is a hexagram, because that's a very powerful symbol and energy. And I just view this kind of perception of time and Saturn as more Kairos, which Kairos is more flow time, and Kairos is more the kind of mercurial. there's images of him where he has wings on his sandals and he looks exactly like Mercury. So this is the wisdom of water. If Saturn is Capricorn and Aquarius is an air sign but the water bearer, well, Capricorn is a sea goat, which is the earthly realms and the water realms. So I think that it really does help to shift our perception of reality if we kind of understand the different phases of water. You have gas, solid, and liquid with water, but then you also have fourth phase, which is a plasma. And I think that this fourth phase water is what goes beyond time and beyond space. And also because it coats our DNA, I think if we recognize the plasma, which I just view more as this Tiamat energy, this more kind of ionized water, which is plasma, which is consciousness, but it would be more subconscious because it emerges from the water. I just wanted to tie in those threads. And also with Nemoto's experiments, on one of the pictures, it shows that, you know, abracadabra, as I speak, I create, or as I create, I speak, you know, whatever. When we're speaking, it's very powerful. So as we speak, we create. Like it comes in, like thoughts is the force which is all around us, water. But then this water comes into our cup, our mind, and we can let it sink into our mind or sink into us. But there's a stagnation where people don't filter it with their heart. They just let it sit in their mind. And then this energy can become very stagnant and heavy and weigh them down. It's important to have the reverse osmosis filtration with the heart, with this vortex energy. And then that's the synchro. And then the mystic, the synchro mystic, is with our wonder, our wisdom of the knowledge of the mind and the intuition of the heart. Then as we speak with intention, we can create anything in reality. So I think that water is something that's been really overlooked, and you know, it's just it just never ceases to amaze me, like the magic of water. The more and more I look into it, I'm like, right, okay, like, so yeah. I thought I'd just throw that out there because Saturn is it annoys me when people say, oh, Saturn is Satan and controls the false reality grid. It's like, well, what if like there's a potential there that is water, because there's waters all around us and it picks up on vibration. But how are we vibrating? Because the water is going to pick up on that, and really it's not any external forces which are responsible for that, but our own self, by going inwards. And there is a program to stop people going inwards that we've been talking about. So yeah, I'm just going to bring this up because the water has so much depth, and it's like we need to start going into it so we can pull out of the water all these mysteries and reveal them to the world.
Yeah, this reminds me of what you mentioned earlier with the Antichrist, and I feel like the Christ wanted us to go within and use the body as the temple, but the Antichrist wants us to focus on the external institution and the external God outside up above. So I feel like that was a good example that you mentioned earlier that really ties back in with this going inside and finding the love within our hearts and stuff, instead of trying to be distracted by the obfuscation of that and only looking on the outside. But I feel like we all kind of do that for a long time until we start to realize that we can look inside. And a lot of people don't ever get there. And people in the mainstream, they're not really brought into that line of thinking.
Yeah, you know, that's very interesting talking about water. I hope I've got the screen right. They've changed some of the things about StreamYard lately with an update, and it doesn't look and flow as nice as it used to. But I've got something here which is quite interesting, and it's something that I read about like some decades ago, and I've got some new age ideas related to it that I was like, yeah, I'm not sure where to go with it. But because we're talking about water, I think it's quite relevant. And the idea is really quite simple. So deep within the water, you've got a water molecule that's called H3O, which is basically, it's got the hydronium. It's a form of hydronium with hydroxides within the, and this is found within like, you know, crystal lattices of minerals specifically, which is quite interesting, metals, crystals. And it's a super ionic state of water, H3O, and it's found deep in the earth. And it's got to do with the, you know, like you got hydroxide, which is HO, which is like highly acidic, as far as I know. Or no, sorry, that's highly alkaline. Let me get this right. And the hydronium water, which is H3O, which people were talking about, that's like the long life water. I don't know. But whenever you get water that comes from distillation, you get hydronium ions in the water. I don't know if you know this, right? So it's quite interesting that a lot of our water now has got more of the hydronium ions in it. I think it might be a natural thing that happens after the rain and precipitation, because that's a form of right, what we're talking about. But yeah, so because of pressure and because of different factors in the earth under the deep within the earth, the anhydrous minerals like ringwoodite and wadzilletite start to imprint onto the water, and the water actually changes its ionic state. And then the hydronium, when the water's in these crystal lattices, of these lattices we're talking about, you know, ringwoodite and wadzilletite, it actually gets affected by the hydronium, and it disassociates the water into the hydroxyl, the OH groups, and then creates a hydronium group. So the one is like negatively charged and the one is positively charged. And this is quite an interesting concept. Like, it just gives us an insight into just how malleable water is.
Yeah, that reminds me of
right?
deuterium.
We think of water as being one thing, but water's got characteristics.
Have you heard of heavy
Yeah.
water? Or it's heavy water, I think, or
Salt. It's got salt in it, is it? It's
hard
heavy
water.
salts.
Hard water has salt in it, right? Hard water.
Dense water.
This heavy water is at the bottom of the ocean. There's these lakes of heavy water, and they're made from either what's called deuterium or tritium, and they have an extra neutron in there, but they maintain the atomic number of one atom, one hydrogen atom. So it's still H2O, but in each of the hydrogen atoms they have an extra neutron for deuterium, and then in the in tritium they have 2 extra neutrons. And so that water is said to be sacred, and people have like there's like been this craze where if you drink that water, that's going to make you healthier. I don't know if that's true. You guys know anything about that? It's been marketed.
Well, which water has been marketed? Do you mean the dense water? It's not heavy, it's dense.
Yeah.
Under the oceans, and it's the same as above as well. The waters above and waters below are dense, probably ionized, more salt water.
They say heavy water
So
is
what is it? Does the water hold more nutrition in it? Does it hold concentrations of particular salts that our bodies want? Like mineral salts that we're maybe short of. Like I don't really know much about that, but it's,
They say it's not radioactive, so that's good. I don't know. I have to learn more about it, but I do believe that people have thought that was like a maybe a cure-all. It could be some kind of a healing elixir.
Yeah, well, I think with the with 3D to 5D and beyond time and stuff, it's perhaps that's how we bring these waters in from the depths, is by making it less dense, because the waters above the firmament there's a dense layer of water there, and there's a dense layer of water under the earth as well, or in the heart, I guess, too. And then to be able to make that less dense is be able to go into those waters, like beyond the firmament, beyond the solid mind. That's where the dreaming is. That's where the dream world is. And how do we bring that in here? It's by being less dense, being more open and fluid. That's enlightenment, having a lighter mind. We can bring what is above into here, and I guess we can bring what is below out and up into it as well, I guess. And are you able to share an image I just shared? It's of the Fool card. So I haven't heard anyone mention this, and I'd like to get your guys' take that this is where we're at now. Is in the background, that's water, and there I think that this card is an air sign, right? And then the Hanged Man is, so this is Aleph, which is air, which is AI. And the reason I think this is interesting, I'm sharing it, is because this is the age of Aquarius. And I think that the age of Aquarius is an air sign, but the water bearer. And I can kind of see this in this is where we're kind of at now, because there's water in the background. And what we've done is we've divided the water. We've kind of ignored the water, and we're kind of walking along through the like, not sort of what's the word, like, and having an ignorance of the water, if that makes sense. And if this sign, well, this card isn't Aquarius, that would be the Star card, where you can see the person pouring water from the water to the land, like, but on this card, which is represented by air, there's a kind of what's the word, ignorance of the water in the background. And I feel that's where we are kind of now, with lots of kind of mental perception, but sort of ignorance of the water. And in this age of Aquarius, an air sign, but the water bearer, stuff needs to come into the mind first through air, through our mind, but then that's how we kind of bring the waters back, not by just using the water, not just intuition, not just the heart, because some people do that. They want to ignore the mind. But I think we're kind of at a sort of a time now where there are many people, especially in the scientific community and like technocrats, which are completely ignoring water, and this kind of more air artificial is sneaking in. And it kind of reminds me of Moses as well, separating the waters, and also that perhaps that would be the flood, dividing the waters. Perhaps that would also be slaying of Tiamat, dividing the waters, chopping Tiamat into two. But yeah.
yeah,
so
it's supposed to. There are a number of issues with StreamYard, by the way. Like, these images are all supposed to go to the screen automatically. I've just double checked all my settings, and normally when someone posts an image, I don't have to click it. But I've noticed for quite a while now, StreamYard, like even though I can go in my settings now and check it, and it will say, literally, it's ticked. It says automatically add presented media to stage, right? That means it should be automatic. For some reason, it doesn't. There's a number of issues with StreamYard I'm noticing, which is very strange. Maybe they're busy today updating their software or something, you know, uploading like new fixes to their site, and just weird stuff happening.
Sorry, something's just come
But
to me.
yeah,
with this
I was just going to say, guys.
What's it?
Sorry.
Shinobi's
Do
got-
you know what
I
this
started
card
speaking.
Do you know what sound this card represents? Is the R sound, right? And the R sound in Phoenician and Paleo Hebrew and Hebrew is the word for I, R. And in Sanskrit, that is aham. Aham. And so that aham is what that card represents. So that is really the card for the self. If you wanted to have a card that represents the ego and the process that the ego is in towards sort of finding reunification of the parts, that card sort of represents the entirety of the journey, of that journey within ourselves, of self-remembering, of embracing, like Narcissus, all the parts that are falling off and passing from the world, remembering, picking up those members and putting them back on, right? Putting yourself back together and becoming whole and healthy. That card represents the entire process of this journey, which is essentially the ego's movement through this thing we call life in order to become whole, because the ego isn't whole. That's the problem. The whole Narcissus story is saying that, like, you know, parts of it it's not alive, it's not whole, because of the denial of the love, you know, and obviously that feminine side being repressed as a result, you know, the twin sister being repressed. She's no longer alive. She's been pushed into the underworld. The persona is being repressed and denied. And so because it's being repressed and denied, it manipulates you and you become obsessed with it. And that whole journey of that disassociation is represented by this card as the journey of the hero, right? The journey towards reunification. Probably the most important card in the whole tarot pack.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to do a quick update on the heavy water. Apparently, it can be fatal, but you can take a small sip of it. They say that the significant qualities of the water with the heavy elements in it, it disrupts the cell processes like cell division. It can cause dizziness and sterility and even death. Around 50% replacement of regular water. So, you know, as much as like people think that it's like some kind of a craze of some health elixir, you have to be really careful with that. So if you end up coming across it, be careful. But I think a lot of this fake orphans that they're selling,
I've got
probably deuterium. But go ahead.
I've got a friend who distills seawater and makes his own heavy water by distilling Atlantic Ocean seawater, but you don't drink it, right?
Right. Yeah.
You like take like a tiny little, like a little thimble, tiny little, like a little hit of it, like that's it, done. And then you drink lots of fresh water because it's loaded full of minerals.
Cool.
It's basically a vitamin tablet. That's what it is.
Yeah,
It's
cool.
got loads of minerals in it and loads of salts and loads of elements that go into your body. But like you say, you know, nutrition is a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Like if you get too much of any nutrition, that can be as toxic as being not having enough.
Right. Yeah, but I love this.
I was just gonna say we've been going for 3.5 hours, so I'd love for you guys to share your last ideas. And I can hear my son and his mother having a drama in the background. I need to go and intervene. Like somebody's got to say, like, hold on, what's going on here? Referee, whoop, whistle, whoop. But what? Yeah, please.
Cool. I just want to mention that
Throw what you guys have. We weren't planning to go for 3.5 hours, were we?
No. But it was good. Time flies when you're having fun. Yeah, and I think that with the Fool card, the number 0 on the Fool card is very significant because the Fool is not in a place where he's comparing himself to others. The Fool is in a place of just being in the moment. And so I think he doesn't really need to take a place or like have like a number in a line. He's just there and he's free. And I feel like it's the thought of caring what others think and worrying so much about what you're supposed to do that makes you have to give yourself a number and take a spot in the line. But when we can free ourselves from that and we can realize that we are free, we don't have to compare ourselves to other people to value ourselves, and that we don't have to be ahead of others or first in line to be good, that we can really enjoy our place where we are here and now and enjoy our companions that are along with us on the journey. So that's all I have to say about that. Passing it to you, Shinobi.
Yeah, well said, man. I view the Fool card as, if I follow that etymology as always, so you have the Fool, which could represent ignorance, hence ignoring the water. And the Fall, as in falling down, because it looks like he's about to fall down. If there was water there, he'd be able to navigate the vast sea, but instead he's going to go down and have to find his way back up onto the mountain. And then also the full, just being too full, not having, you can't have an open mind if you're full. You have to empty your cup once in a while. So, you know, you can look at things all ways, but that's how I view that card. It's sort of similar to Narcissus as well, the image of Narcissus, like you know, having sort of the ignorance of the water or the waters within, and looking upwards and not looking down. Yeah, so you're looking up into the sky, into the air, and then not looking to the waters below because you'd see that there's no water there. So that's how I view that card. And also on water, everyone is deficient in magnesium.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like there's primary or spring water would be rich in all the minerals that we need, but we get most of our water from the tap, which is full of all sorts. And frankly, here in the UK, tastes like pharmaceuticals. So that's why we have a filter. We have a reverse osmosis filter. And, you know, it takes out all the heavy metals and stuff. And we put electrolytes, like magnesium stuff in it. But tap water is deficient in magnesium. And I've just been splitting the word magnesium, and I've just found that mag is related to fire or ammunition or magnitude. So the ammunition, so the fire is the fire within, which is our ammunition, and magnitude is related to the celestial bodies or the stars within. And then the knee is related to Capricorn or leadership. And so that's the magnese, is the fire or the ammunition or the celestial leadership. And then the magnesium, is either the I am, the recognizing that the I am, or the eye of Yam. And Yam is the sea god. So let's break it down. I am, magnesium. The mag is the fire, the ammunition, the knee is the leadership, and the eye of Yam is the eye of the water. So you have a blend of the water and the fire, and the recognition that we are the leaders, you know, magnesium. And everyone's deficient in it. Everyone's deficient in the fire, the ammunition, the leadership, because that's why we have like little boys running the show in our governments and stuff, tying into initiation there, and the lack of. And then, yeah, so I just want to share that magnesium I am, because I think that's quite interesting. That's with the magnesium. That's how we kind of invoke the flame within, in a way. So yeah, everyone get some magnesium inside you. And before we go, I would just say it's been a great show today. Yeah, 3.5 hours, and in India, it must be almost morning now where you are. You've done well to stay up. So I think so 8 a.m. UK would have been like 3 a.m. your time. So
Yeah,
man, it's been great.
Yeah, I've been really passionate. I usually sit around and watch TV all day and stuff, and like watch, you know, videos or movies or something. I've just been reading and talking to people all day and doing chores. So like I'm like wired. Once I start talking to people, I get giddy and like I like start dancing and jumping around. I get happy. I've been isolated my whole life, and I found people that I can talk to now. Most people get sick of me talking. They're like, dude, we don't know what you're talking about. Shut up. Because
same.
Yeah, you know. So it's a good feeling, and I'm glad to be with you guys here today. It's been great, and it's been a wonderful discussion. It's been really awesome hanging with the fellas, and I love everybody in the chat's been great today. Especially they've been having poking a lot of fun out there. We got thanks to Vincent and My Sherry and Tom Rua. Saying some fun things out there in the chat. Much love to all y'all.
Well, absolutely. It's been an absolute lovely, lovely, lovely discussion. My Cherry, Vincent, the whole crew, as always, you guys are lovely. Sorry I haven't been able to follow the chat so easily. I've been taking screenshots because and it's not my device, because I've got two different laptops. One is Windows and one is Linux, and it's on both. And the one is using Firefox. No, they're both using Google Chrome. Maybe I should try it on Firefox, though. StreamYard actually recommends that you use Google Chrome, and in the past I've had issues with the audio with Firefox, which is why I haven't used Firefox in so long. Maybe that's what it is, but they've got these notifications that pop up covering my chat, telling me that I can't get messages between my Facebook because of XYZ. But when I look, the setting isn't what they say it is. So it's obviously got to do with some kind of server changes. But you guys, big love and blessings to all of you. What I have seen of you guys saying has been great. I've got a small little mirror here, a small little gap that I can sort of see some of the comments in. But yeah, big love and big blessings to all of you. Take it easy, keep it sweet, keep it smiling. Oh, and by the way, this weekend we're going to be doing a deep dive into the seminal work of the Ethiopian story of Enoch, which is the most comprehensive and holds, I think, the best version of Enoch that there is. Hats off to the Ethiopians for keeping that knowledge intact. It's always nice to find a whole book rather than just pieces of a book and take a piece from here and a piece from there and a piece and put them together and hope you've got the whole story. Well, here we've got the whole story. It's a little bit of a long one. Hopefully we'll be able to fly through it, and we're probably going to focus more on the story of the giants. We're probably not going to focus on the whole of Enoch's life so much. We're probably going to focus more on the giants, to get an idea of these fallen ones. Who are these Igigi, these Grigori, these giants?
That sounds awesome.
The most comprehensive breakdown of the information is in this Ethiopian one. So hopefully we'll see you all there. Take it
I
easy,
just
keep it
say,
sweet, keep it
perhaps
smiling.
perhaps we can do a future one of these where we can go more deep into like Stranger Things, the Matrix, and we were talking about the Dark Crystal, how that ties in with other things, and just how the programming works. Because I think it's good to like kind of reveal how the program works, so we can kind of dissolve it. Because I meant to talk about Stranger Things today, and I did title that as on my YouTube. But perhaps another time we can carry on with the subconscious and how we can sort of reveal how the program runs, sort of thing. Maybe in the future.
That's actually really cool. We should probably do a series of actual just focus on Stranger Things, because like there's a whole Stranger Things is like a whole universe in itself, isn't it? It's like season 1, season 2. I haven't watched the later seasons, but I did. I mean, it's what I've seen has been pretty mind blowing and very intense, you know, and so into what we're talking about, this program, physical reality, and you know, the eighth sphere. Like, where are these beings? Yeah, brother. Were you going to say something, dear brother?
You
Indeed.
talk about the demigorgs and the upside down. I'm looking forward to that. Stein was saying he's probably the only person that hasn't seen that yet. You got to get him to watch it. If he's got any time between his podcasts.
He hasn't seen Stranger Things?
Apparently not, he said.
I was thinking
Crazy.
the other day.
I mean, I haven't watched all of it myself.
Season.
Yeah?
The dark.
Out. But I was just saying season 5 is out now.
You were thinking that the Dark Crystal.
Well,
sorry, Indy. I think what's happening is you're lagging.
I think you're right. There's like a delay overseas over there.
So the Dark Crystal is like our past, and looking at stuff like the present moment from the past. Stranger Things is like the present moment. It's set in the present world with the upside down. And then the Matrix is like in the future. And all three of them have this feeding off the subconscious. So it'll be cool to like tie in those threads. We can do a series on Stranger Things, but obviously we'll have to talk about the Matrix, and we'll tie in the Dark Crystal and the never-ending story too, you know. So yeah, I look forward to that. Yeah.
I think the Dark Crystal is a very close, is a similar paradigm. You're right. You know, the two worlds crashing into each other. Indy, you were saying something, and then it came and it went, and it came and it went. We missed you, brother.
Oh, I was just saying we can talk about the upside down and the demigorgs and all that fun stuff. I love Stranger Things and stuff, but I was trying to remember the name of the villain. It starts with a V, but
Vecna.
I can't think of
It's an anagram of Vance, and you have JD Vance. Just saying.
Hell yeah. Yeah, Vecna's a sinister character. But the demigorgs are fascinating. They got a flower for a face, but they're like a demonic creature, so it's a bit of a oxymoronic kind of thing.
Oh, oxymoron is very much what is all our fantasy is around. They want the baddie to be good and the goodie to be bad, and they want us to not really give a damn about the good guy. They want us to identify with the bad guy.
Yeah.
Is Henry associated with the number 20 at all? Or did I make that up? Because I do remember an eighth of weed in the UK was called a Henry.
What's on a $20 bill? What's president?
Was it?
No, I think it's somebody else.
Or an eighth of weed used to cost 20 pounds back in the day. The reason for that is because the guy is called Henry in Stranger Things. Vecna is called Henry. And I was wondering if there's a correlation between the number 20, because the number 20 is the judgment card, which I just feel that number 20 and
Henry the Eighth.
Henry the Eighth. Right.
Wasn't Henry VIII a notorious user of substances? Did he go crazy? Am I right? Did Henry VIII go nuts because of like drug use? I could be wrong.
Oh, that's it. Henry VIII sphere. That's Henry
Yes.
VIII. Henry VIII. So that's why my mind's made that connection, because Henry is the one in Stranger Things bringing the eighth sphere. He wants to bring the eighth sphere into their realm. That's what Stranger Things is about, and he's called Henry. And then you have Henry VIII, and then an eighth here in the UK, an eighth of weed. We used to call it Henry. Used to cost £20. So then that's where I made the correlation to 20. But yeah, Henry VIII sphere. I know that he's called Henry for a reason in Stranger Things. I know it. And then Vecna is an anagram of Vance. And then you have J.D. Vance, who was funded by the Reptile, aka Peter Thiel, as they advance this beast system, try and pull in the eighth sphere into this reality.
Yeah, man. That's really interesting. Well, anyway, that's going to be a lot of fun and games. Not right. Give me a minute. So I'm going to count to 3. 1, 2, 3. Close the door. I'll be with you in 2 minutes. So I get. Oof! Slammed the door too loud. So yeah. I get from this there's going to be a lot of exciting. We'll definitely have to dismantle a lot of these fantasy stories. I think the Stranger Things is going to be a really exciting one to dig into. And the Henry notion, I wonder if it's got to do with Henry the King. Sorry, just let me quickly go and lock that child out. Oh no, he's run off. I literally have to lock the door and then go out and ban him from touching his tablet for like 2 days because he doesn't understand when I say please. But you know, kids, boys are wild. They often need I promise you that I will ban your tablet for 20 days if you come in one more time without my invitation. I give you my word. So you shouldn't have to ask 3 times, should you? 20 days, and you know I can count. He knows that I can count. He's seen me count in the past. I can count 20 days. 20 days without your tablet is a long time when you love Minecraft, you know. But I
have to
can get
talk
quite
about
intense
Minecraft as well.
like when I lay it down.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's the same story. That is Stranger Things, but for kids. Minecraft. That is that is the story. So we can just tie all these threads together to kind of hopefully paint a clearer picture of what could be going on. Yeah.
We can use Stranger Things as the anchor. Like the root, the anchor. What happened there? Okay, well, Indy dropped off. Well, thank you, everybody. It's been an absolutely great day. We almost hit 4 hours. Blooming dingle bomb. Almost 4 hours. Don't know how we did that, brother. Anyway, it's been an honor. Thank you. Thank you, Indy. Thank you, Stein. Thank you, everybody. My Cherry, it's so sweet to see you. Vince, Gaz. Was Gaz in here? Kind Davies. Everybody else that's been in the space. Tom Rue. Big love and big blessings to all of you. Naraka, and Ori. Indica? No, please, my darling. My boy is teasing them through the window because he knows how to press Indigo's buttons. He's so cheeky. Oh my gosh. I promise you I'll take him out today. Big love to everybody. Have an absolutely awesome day. Thank you guys for joining us. Om Shanti. Thank you, brother. As always, an honor. Dear Shinobi. Blessed be.